Here we go.
Okay.
Okay, ready.
Wait a minute.
Good.
It says close. What's going on? Okay, there we go.
There it goes.
Yeah.
Good morning. This is the New York City Board of Standards and Appeals Public Review Session for June 15, 2021, 10 a.m. session. No public testimony is permitted during the review session. The first item up is special order calendar, continued hearing items. Item number 22, 2019, 299 BZ, 8201 to 8213 Queens Boulevard, Queens.
Right. There had been a discussion at the last hearing about fees and the proper requests on the application. Those have been corrected and the fees paid. I thought the applicant was very responsive to the board's concerns. On proof of continuous use, the variance expired in December 1997. Applicant provided proofs for at the last hearing, but we had a gap from 97 to 2001. Aerial photographs from 96, 2001, and 2003 appear to show the site operating as a gas station, even though they're fuzzy, but I'm still confused about what's filling in the time in between. Perhaps Commissioner Otley Brown has put it together better than I. We stated at the last hearing that the utility and gas delivery bills are acceptable if specific to the user, but not if general, like the water bills that don't have any indication of who the user is. Proof of use should also be supported with a chart that shows which exhibit supports use in a given year so that we don't have to do put it together. That might have made it clearer for us. They should need to make sure also that all drawings are dated as of the date of the submission. The sets we are looking at are all still dated in March, though they're submitted in May. I really beg project managers also, don't accept drawings that aren't dated as of the submission date or close to, because there's no way for us to really know that we have the most recent set of drawings. We can't rely just on the BSA stamp, okay? The curb cuts will be reduced to 30 feet and relocated. I'd like them to clarify on the site plan the distance between the curb cuts and the width of the curb cut to remain on 51st Avenue. There's just some missing dimensions there. Only 3 dispensers instead of 4 are now proposed. The existing building will be enlarged instead of demolished by less than 50% of the floor area existing as of 1961. So enlarged by less than 50% of the floor area. Of the existing walls to be removed, I don't see where the 61 foot 6 inches are on the plans, and where are the 391 square feet of floor area to be removed. It looks like all 4 walls are being retained except for 14 foot 10 inches of them. They should provide a legend for existing to remain versus to be removed with new walls. That's what made the drawing difficult to figure out in terms of the statement, and also the new floor area versus the existing floor area, just to clarify where that is. The applicant makes an argument that the degree of removal of existing walls is not a demolition based on section 52-531 or 52-55 of the zoning resolution. However, neither of those regulations apply in the case of a pre-61 variance. Section 1141 applies in this case, and the board has to determine whether the building is being demolished on a case-by-case basis. So I'd ask them to remove those arguments from the statement of facts because it might misdirect a later applicant who takes a look at this application material. They should show the 4 elevations and finish materials for all sides. The trash enclosure, though happily, is inside the enlarged building. Thank you for doing that. The statement of facts has a different total for illuminated signage than drawing BSA 09 has. The maximum illuminated signage is 50 square feet. So I hope that they've got that and they understand that. So those are my comments, Vice Chair Shonda.
Sorry. Just first of all, just starting with the zoning analysis chart. Just little correction, the proposed zoning floor area that is indicated should be consistent. It states, for example, it states 0.3 FAR for commercial use and 0.29 FAR for total floor area of FAR. It should be actually 0.3 or 0.29 in both cases. So that should be corrected. In the revised plan, the applicant is proposing to provide two 12,000 gallon tank instead of three 10,000 gallon tanks. However, the statement of facts compliance chart regarding the proposed UST, it's not consistent and with the cover sheet. So there are two sets of numbers that are floating between statement of fact and cover sheet and the drawing. So those all need to be consistent. As you mentioned, the applicant has been very responsive to the comments that were raised at the last hearing and has provided a very in-depth analysis and clarification. One of the things that I thought was interesting, the applicant provided why an air pump is not required in this proposed facility because it would have less than 4 gas dispensers and therefore air pump is not required. Okay, I just want to note that the current site does have an air pump and it has currently 2 gas dispensers. And just want the applicant to be mindful of the fact that they also stated this is a facility that is very well used by taxi drivers and others. So if in future an air pump becomes a commodity that is demanded or needed, it would be best if they can identify the spot now so that we know where it is and it does not get put in the way of maneuverability or other places. So it would be a suggestion that be thought through, even though it's not going to be placed now, it just should be thought through. And the landscaping detail I thought was missing, though there isn't much, but that I didn't see that page. But other than that, I'm satisfied with this application.
Okay. Thank you. Commissioner Ollie Brown?
I'm satisfied with this application as it is now. They previously had provided quite a bit of continuous use documentation. And even though the DEP water bills were questionable, they had an Olympia Fuel and Oil Service letter saying that they had served this particular address since December 2001. And they also had a Con Ed letter that had attested to the service from January 1999. But now with this past submission, they gave us a lot of Google Earth photos that show activity on the site, basically covering just about every year, as well as original tax photos from the 40s and the 80s. So I personally feel that they have closed the remaining gap that I thought existed from December 1997 when they purchased the site to December 1998, because they have a Google Earth photo from June 2018 that goes to, and they have Google Earth photos from May 2019, and that kind of plugs that 1 year gap. And I'm satisfied that they were continually in use for all of this time.
Okay, thank you very much. Appreciate that. Okay. All right, Commissioner Shaita.
Thank you, Chair. I want to thank them for being very responsive and for the very organized and detailed response they provided. I see that they reduced the number of dispensers. That's good. The enclosure is now is inside. That's good too. Again, I want to thank them, and I have no further comments. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Sorry, I have honking outside. Commissioner Shabeta.
Thank you, Chair. I found the application quite responsive, and I have no further questions. I'm satisfied with this application.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, new cases, item number 23, 1809 BC, 250 West 54th Street, Manhattan. Madam Chair, you're recusing. Vice Chair?
Okay, yep, sorry. We do not need a proof of service of initial filing or a proof of hearing notice, since this is an extension of time to secure certificate of occupancy. As you may recall, in 2019, the board had granted an extension with a condition that a certificate of occupancy by May of 2020 be secured. This is a PCE located partially on the first floor, second and third floor, and the applicant had at that time started the procedure for securing a PA permit and other documentations. However, the entire building, I think they started the process, and as the documentation has been provided, the applicant has been working with DOB, then the pandemic issue and other issues came up. The applicant has not been able to put a closure to secure a CO for as required in our BSA resolution. And because of that condition of May 19, 2020, DOB is also not able to proceed with its review, as I understand it. So the applicant is requesting that that we extend the term, extend the time to secure a CO. I gather from the documentations provided, there's been no change in ownership, there's been no change in the floor plans, and the fire department also issued a letter of no objection. And I think at the last hearing, we had not received any complaints regarding noise or any other complaints. So I just kind of wanted to know if any of the other commissioners had any issues. Commissioner Oakley-Brown?
No issues.
Thank you. Commissioner Shetta?
Thank you, Vice Chair. I just need a statement from them on the record that there is no complaints, no violations. Also, they are complying with our previous grant, the 2019 grant, and that's all. Thank you.
Okay. Commissioner Shibata?
Thank you, Vice Chair. I second Commissioner Shetta's comments, and I have nothing further to add. Thank you.
Thank you. I think given that all of last year has gone into a pandemic thing, not sure to what extent they can provide any statement as to how it has been operating, but yes, definitely it would be helpful to get something in writing with regards to any additional violations and complaints. Again, they would be able to better tell us that during the public hearing. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Vice Chair. Next item is item number 24, 33902BZ, 14565 Springfield Boulevard, Queens. Madam Chair. Oh.
Yeah, I'm back. Okay, sorry, just a second. Okay, this is a new SOC application that has converted the request from a previously submitted and one hearing's worth of review new variance application. We had asked that the application be submitted to officials and received a letter of no objection from the community board. A waiver of our rules was requested to allow the SOC application for a variance that expired in February of 2013, and proof of continuous use was provided in the form of Con Ed bills and street view imagery. There was no detail in the discussion of the substantial prejudice that would result absent a waiver, so they need to improve on that. They can't just say it would be, we would suffer substantial prejudice and not explain a little bit of why. Based on our discussions at the last hearing, the commissioners are to consider the C minimum variance finding and the B finding as related to that. And a reminder that this is not a programmatic needs analysis, which applies only for not-for-profit community facilities and subsidized housing. The issue is the addition of the 4,058 square foot mezzanine, which is before us as a legalization. From what I see in the statement of facts, the C finding is being based on a programmatic needs analysis, unless I'm missing something. We directed the applicant to look at the 826-85BZ application, which is the Bronx Catering Hall case with respect to obsolescence for the use typology, not that specific use, but the idea of a catering hall in general, right? I didn't see that actually done here, or what was provided was extremely skimpy. To establish that the ground floor space occupied by offices is obsolete for the typology, wouldn't the applicant need to establish that with examples of other such sites without this difficulty, or other sites that have the difficulty? In other words, to establish that this is a standard in an area where there's a lot of this kind of warehousing, and if you have offices on the ground floor, it doesn't function somehow, which is kind of what they're saying for the specific use, but it's not a typological argument. The economic analysis does a much better job at the argument, and those arguments should have been incorporated into the statement of facts with further substantiation from other sites. The survey provided does not show spot grades, quote unquote, as represented in the PDF title, in the title there of the survey. Explain what the sketches are that are labeled as, quote, retaining wall 1 to 3. They are undimensioned and oddly abstract. I actually didn't understand what they were. They kind of look like abstract paintings. I didn't understand their purpose. The existing block.
I believe they are laser scanning.
Okay, so yeah, but so I didn't understand. They're laser scans of what? Like, that's what I didn't understand. Laser scans of what? Where are they taken? How is it done? Why is it? What are those things? They just gave them to us, right? Also, the existing block wall on Springfield is noted as, quote, to be parged. I'm concerned about parging because I've seen a lot of terrible parging in my day. So I'd like them to know that the finish must be of residential appropriate quality with tinted or painted stucco. So parging is just like a schmear thing you do to waterproof something. That's not what we're after here. We're after residential quality finish. Flowering trees along the side lot line must be installed in planting beds of a minimum of 4 feet deep front to back on each side of the fencing, with concrete curbing and wheel stops at the parking areas. Trees are to be planted minimum height of 4 feet to start, to grow to a minimum height of 8 feet. They need to provide sectional details of all the planting, number of each plant type, and spacing of the planting. Drawings P9 and P10 indicate that this is, quote, as built. I don't think that's correct. In fact, it's not correct. The type, and also tie P, drawing P11 to somewhere. P11 is just this floating piece of paper that doesn't have any connection to the rest of the drawings. Drawing B8 shows the trees in, quote, planter tubs. That doesn't give me comfort that these are in-ground planting. All of these drawings must be properly coordinated, and landscape work drawings must be prepared by a landscape architect. The drawings are not acceptable as is, and it's clearly that they're not prepared by an experienced landscape architect. Maybe it's prepared by someone with that much experience who is trained or beginning to be trained in that way. The trash enclosure, you need to provide details. The walls must be a finished masonry gates, and gates must be solid metal, not open wire with slatting. They have to key the plan to the detail that does exist. but actually there's no way for you to know about it until you get to P12. So the drawings need to be keyed in. I just don't understand this constant submission of drawings where there are details with no relationship at all to the plans and sections. The lumen spread letter describes 3 different sets of measurements taken and lights on and lights off, but the diagrams provided did not support these statements. The lights off study would establish ambient levels, so there would be no need to excuse lighting level based on street lamps, which is what they did. They said, oh, the lights are high here because of street lamps. But if you didn't lights on, lights off, we would see that the ambient levels are caused by street lamps, and that would be that, right? Furthermore, there is reliance on existing fencing, but the instruction in terms of the lighting, but the instruction is to change much of the fencing to open metal picket to match, which is what is on 147th Avenue. So the study can't rely on fencing, and there is no reason not to properly shield the lighting to achieve 0.0 lumens on the residential property lines. There's really no excuse for that. Some additional aerial photos were submitted on June 11th, but there's no cover letter to explain what those are for. So those are my comments. The submission was kind of responsive, but not very well done, not well coordinated, not well, let's say, yeah, not well done. Okay, Vice Chair Shanda.
I am satisfied that the applicant made the modification from the SOC new calendar. However, I agree with you. I think the documentations came in bits and pieces a little bit, and it was it could have been better coordinated to help us with the review. I think overall from the documentations that's been provided so far, my outstanding issues are with regards to noise and lumen analysis. And again, I also did not understand the purpose of the wall, the laser wall that was shown. I really did not understand the purpose of it, what it was trying to get at. So those are my 3 questions. The lumen study was not clear to me. The noise analysis, I think we had asked that question because there were trucks that were backing against the residential building. We wanted to a noise study on it and its impact on the abutting residential building. That was not provided. And what was the purpose of the retaining wall analysis that was provided? How does that tie into either the noise or the landscaping or the lumen?
I just meant to read also Tracy Benke's notes to me about the EAS so that we keep that. Some of that is also about noise, right? I think.
Okay.
EAS was switched to a tech memo at the board's request because the variance is converted to an amendment. Hazmat is open. Phase 2 and work plan and HASP were approved on April 1st, awaiting phase 2 report from the applicant. Noise, there's a tech memo that was sent to DEP on May 28th. Air quality tech memo sent to DEP also on May 28th. WRP was closed, the sign-off received in March. Then in term, the noise memo and backup data submitted at the board's request sent DEP on May 28th to see if DEP would like to comment. So we do have a noise memo, right?
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Otley Brown.
So I would say I found that the submission was far better than the last. I was satisfied with their continuous use proof, and I actually found their obsolescence argument to be a good obsolescence argument. From my perspective, I felt that, yes, they did end up zeroing in on this particular business, but I think they talked enough about how valuable it is in a warehouse to use all of your ground floor warehouse space for storage. And that when you have to devote that kind of space to office, it takes away from from the overall development. And so I found that persuasive, being that we've had so many other warehouse arguments in various other variances where basically the idea of storage on the first floor has always been pounded into our head over and over again as prime. So for me, it didn't take that much of a leap to come to the conclusion that this is really an industry-wide issue. And then I also found it very helpful that they filled it in with also their personal operations on how that business works. That being said, then once I looked at the financials were very supportive of their argument, and they made the adjustments that I had requested previously in terms of cutting down on the construction costs in the pre-existing as per variance, and getting rid of the tenant letter from the pre-existing and also the proposed. And so I found that they made their case.
Okay.
So I'm satisfied.
Great. Okay. Thank you. That's helpful. I think because you have some institutional memory about the other warehouse cases, you filled in the blanks. For me, it was a little bit of, maybe it's kind of an obvious premise, but for me, it was kind of the first time hearing an argument like that. So, okay, thank you. Appreciate it. Commissioner Shaffer.
Thank you, Chair. I start with the retaining wall and the survey submission. My understanding to these, and if I don't get it right, I hope they clarify. During the last hearing was some discussion about the grades around the site, about some retaining walls, the configuration of them. So my understanding is they are not submitting a formal topographic survey. What they did is they got like a plain survey and they put some spot elevations at the retaining walls, top of wall, bottom of wall, and they just supported that by some laser scanning shots that they provided to us. The plane survey showed the locations for the laser scanning, and they called them A and B and C, I guess. And the spot elevation shows which side is the high side and which side is the low side. This is what I'm getting from the survey and the laser scanning. If they like intended to show something else, I hope they clarify that. I have two major issues with this application, and they are both related to the surrounding residential neighbors. The first one is lighting. The second one is the noise. Regarding the lighting, when I looked at the lighting study, I don't think whoever has done this lighting study did read our administrative notice. The study doesn't show on and off. It just shows one set of readings. And even they submitted to us something that's not needed from our side. It's just waste of their time. They submitted the numbering, the IDs for the data points they collected. We don't need that. If you gave me the data, why do I care about whether this is point number 10 or point number 1000? It doesn't matter for us. So this plan could have been like saved. We don't need it. And they need to show us what kind of equipment, what are the on lights, lumens, off lumens, and then what is the difference, so we can evaluate how much is coming from their lighting system. And this is exactly what is described in the administrative notes. The other issue is the noise, and I'm gonna make my testimony on this short. If you want to go forward, there is a case number 10. It was looked at yesterday, 122-95-BZ. That this is, I'm talking about the Rockaway Boulevard case. It's very similar to this. That the way the noise study is done in Springfield case is, I believe they have taken some noise readings in the morning, some noise readings in the noon time, and some in the late afternoon. And we're not sure whether it was like a noise event, like a truck honking, truck idling, nothing. Somebody's blowing the engine, nothing like that. We're not sure what happened when what is measured. So they need to simulate what's gonna happen on site during the real life operation. And I commend them to take a look at the other noise study and learn from it. I believe this site ultimately will need noise wall installed around neighbors, similar to this site. I believe is more severe. The impact could be more severe than the other side because the residential here is much more close than the other side. So hopefully they will take a look at it, update their study, and just get this moving. Thank you.
Thank you. That's a good recommendation. Thank you. Commissioner Shabetto.
Thank you, Chair. I was satisfied with the obsolescence argument. I did have questions with regard to the lumen analysis. I did not see I know there was statements that there was an EAS with regard to sound analysis. With the application that I reviewed, I was still had questions with regard to sound and what mitigation, what the effect of any mitigation factors they had. And that's all I have on this.
Sorry, what's the effect? They didn't have any mitigation factors as far as I remember.
I'm not sure if the retaining wall is supposed to be a mitigation factor. I don't know. It wasn't detailed or if there was any mitigation factors here.
Okay. Tracy, go ahead, Ms. Benke.
Thank you. Yeah, I'll look into that as well. I just wanted to say that the Lumen study was in a folder called Secret Reviews. I'm going to move that outside because it's not really linked to Seeker. And the noise analysis is sort of two parts in that DEP said that part of this is related to Seeker, but then the board went beyond asking for more information than Seeker requires. We did send both memos, the tech memo and the noise study, and we'll see what DEP does comment on. And in terms of the other case, Rockaway Boulevard, DEP still hasn't commented on that noise study.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Okay. All right.
Next item is appeals calendar, continued hearing items 25, 2019-69A and 2019-70A, 341, 343 Mallory Avenue, Staten Island.
Okay, this application has been at the agency for over 2 years, and its first calendar hearing was postponed in January 2020 and again in March of 2020, with only one hearing in June of 2020 and 3 adjournments since. The applicant requested another adjournment for this hearing, which we denied. None of the commissioners' concerns about the application were addressed during the time since the first hearing in June a year ago. The June 7th, 2021 cover letter attempts to respond to the question of whether there is a hardship on the lot, but provides no supporting plans to substantiate it. I can't follow the argument actually without visuals. The letter states that 3 houses can be built as of right on the site that has 105 feet of frontage. I don't understand how being able to do that poses a hardship. There's an unsubstantiated statement that the as of right development would likely need variances. I also don't understand that. There is some kind of argument about not being able to use the 3 existing tax lots. 2 of the lots are only 20 feet wide in an area where most are 40 feet wide. But anyway, this is being treated as a new development site where the tax lots are merged into one development site or can be re-subdivided. So the width of the lots previously is really irrelevant. There's 105 feet of frontage on a map street. There is no explanation for why an as-of-right house can't sit back far on its lot the way the adjacent house does on a similar lot at 331 Mallory. It appears also that unless they've already been demolished, house number 335 and a half sits behind 333 Mallory currently. So the house behind a house already exists as a grandparented condition. So removing it would be a self-created hardship, it seems to me. If you kept that house and that doesn't need any approvals and added the 3 more with frontage, that's 4 houses on the development lot. That sounds very viable to me, as does 3, but 4 is even more, right? So I actually don't think the site is distinguished from the board's Nello Court decision or that the hardship has been established. We do have DEP approval for internal water mains and DEP sewer connections, but those are needed to be gotten even for an as-of-right project. Okay, Vice Chair Shanda.
Okay. So I looked through the submission, and what I found interesting was there were 4 existing lots 170, 172, 173, 174. Lot 170 was 40 feet wide, lot 172, 20 feet wide, lot 173, 20 feet wide, lot 174, 25 feet wide along Mallory Avenue. So based on the special district that is located here, of the 4 zoning lots at that time, only lot 40 could have been developed as of right because it had a 40-foot wide frontage. The requirement is 35-foot wide frontage.
Not lot 40, lot 170.
Sorry, lot 170. I'm sorry. Lot 170 has a 40-foot wide frontage. Rest of the lots have frontages that are less than the minimum required, which is 35 feet in an R3X district in this area. So the remaining 3 sites would have required variance to be able to build an as-of-right home there. Basically, they cannot build an as-of-right home. So if this were to be built, these 4 sites were to be built, one would have a house on a 40-foot wide lot as of right, variance on lot 72, on 172, lot number 172, variance building on a lot 173, and a variance building on a lot 174. I'm looking at it from a more site planning point of view in terms of what one would achieve and what the build context is and what the intent of the rezoning was. With all of that in mind, I think what the applicant is proposing is more consistent with the neighborhood and the build form than having buildings on very narrow lots that would be at most 17-foot wide or something like that. Most of the buildings here are much wider, sitting on a wider lot front. So I'm satisfied with the approval, the application that is before us, and should we be going forward, I would be okay with approving this project. I really don't have any additional comments on this project otherwise.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Commissioner Otley Brown.
I'm also satisfied with the project as is and have no comments.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Sheta.
I share the same opinion with the Vice Chair and Commissioner Brown, and I have no further comments. Thank you.
Okay. Commissioner Shivetta.
Thank you, Chair. I was not compelled by the hardship argument. And first of all, they have frontage on what they're proposing. There's an ample amount of frontage. It's 105 feet. They can build 3 houses on it. As the chair stated earlier, they also have a house behind the house. So now they would have a total of 4 houses. They would have to make an argument that shows that there is a hardship here, and they haven't even attempted to do so. And based on that, I don't see how this is any different than Nello. In fact, I believe they have it's a better outcome than the case in Nello.
How so?
In Nello, the result of Nello was just 3 houses that they were able to build in the front. They requested to build 6. In this particular case, they are able to have 4 houses on their lot.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's if they haven't already demolished the house, the existing house. I don't know if they have.
Which would create a self-created hardship that they can't then ask us to remedy.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Move on.
Yes.
Zoning calendar, continued hearing, item number 26, 2017-262 BC, 18 Stanwick Street, Brooklyn.
Okay. The community board met in March of this year and voted with one abstention to disapprove, stating that they oppose residential uses in manufacturing districts. The uniqueness study includes many sites in the R district, so it's actually not comparable. And there are several similarly sized lots in the M district that are distinguished because they are used for parking, even though not held under common ownership with the adjoining property. This site could also be used for parking in that way, so that criteria should not be a disqualifier. Otherwise, you have that option on every vacant lot to be used by somebody way up the street for parking, right? We still don't have proof of separate and single ownership of the subject site. I'm confused about the reason. We last heard this in February. A linen tax map does not give information about common ownership, and linen doesn't tell us the date of the map. It just tells us it's linen. So I don't know if that's an assumption that all linen tax maps existed at a certain date, but you can't assume that, or you need to tell us. And I'm also confused about this absence of the proof of single and separate. That's research that can be done online also. You don't need to wait for the title company. If the title company is not getting back to you, do your own research. We do. So there's a point at which you can't go back anymore, but do the research as far as you can go back. We now have a letter of no objection from fire department. We had asked that since the application was filed in 2017 and only heard in 2021, the submission needs to be updated to reflect actual conditions in 2021, such as zoning regulations, radius map, etc. I leave to Commissioner Ollie Brown about the financials, but we can't be working with possibly outdated zoning maps, area photos, etc. As to the layout of the units, I don't think the owner or architect understood the point of the commissioner's comments. The units as proposed without windows in the living room space, which is shared with the kitchenette, is just not acceptable. The units are too small to be 2 bedrooms, and this board does not condone the creation of substandard units. I mean, those are the kinds of units that are created by landlords who take living rooms and convert them to bedrooms so they get 2 bedrooms out of it. I'm not even sure that's legal. The so-called design choice, as quote unquote, to lift the first floor above grade and present a blank wall to the street, a sad entry door, and stairs to the subterranean areaway is also unacceptable and anti-urban. The cover letter states that the design is similar to that found elsewhere in the neighborhood. I'd like you to show us one. I don't think so. It's a complete misunderstanding of stoop conditions, parlor floors, all those kinds of things that happen where the first floor is lifted. You do not see anything that looks like this sorry thing. Really, it's just a sorry project. And again, it is not a cellar if it is more than 50% of the floor to ceiling height below grade. The new and improved detail shows 4 foot 6 inches below grade and 5 foot 6 inches above grade. If not a cellar, then it counts as floor area. And if you have 2 dimensions on the same dimension line, then I'm relying on the one that I like better. So you can't have 2, and that's what's going on here. You have 2 dimensions on the same dimension line, and I'm going with the 5 foot 6 because that's what there was before. And frankly, it's not a cellar. So even in the drawing, it's proportionately not a cellar. I have to say on this project, this is feeling like deja vu all over again. No progress was made on the application. And in any event, I'm very concerned about the impact of this residential use on this social block with no other residential uses on either side. The streetscape at drawing Z008 tells it all and says this is a pretty bad idea. Nothing was provided to dispel those same concerns raised at the last hearing. We asked at the last hearing for the applicant to look at a conforming use with bulk waivers and didn't get anything. So I'm very disappointed with what's going on with this application. And then in terms of seeker, the applicant submitted a revised EAS in February, but it was unresponsive to board questions like everything else. This application will need hazmat, noise, landmarks, and air quality review once the questions are addressed. Applicant has indicated that they may obtain a new environmental consultant to update the EAS, but has not indicated that has happened yet. So no progress on the application, and we've been at this too long. So, you know. Okay, so Vice Chair Shanda.
Okay. First, a very simple correction. The calendar number on the statement of fact, it needs to be corrected. It's not an appeals case. It has an A written next to it. That's just a simple cleanup. Again, with regards to the linen map, I'm not sure what it was trying to confirm. I looked through the actress history for lots 8 and 7. It seems while these two lots were in different ownerships till 2002, they were in different ownership till 2000. After that, the properties were in different ownership and subsequently were in tax lien in different times. And in 2004, lot 8 was in tax lien, and in 2008, lot 7 was in tax lien, and after that it's been under I think different ownership since then. So I just kind of wanted to note that from what I saw. Applicant should look into all of that and provide the details. With regards to the uniqueness, I'm satisfied with the uniqueness study. Another thing to note that the subject block and the site falls within the West Bushwick Urban Renewal Area. It is still an active urban renewal plan. Though the subject block has not been identified for redevelopment, most of the large parcels to the north in the Rheingold Brewery sites were developed. I also looked through the lots on this subject block, block 3162. And the reason I stayed focused on the subject block is that the two immediate blocks to the east, that is blocks 3153 and 3163, that are also in manufacturing districts, M1 and M3 zoning districts, have very large lots that are being used for manufacturing use, whereas block 3143, where our and block 3143, which is under city ownership, is designated as a parkland. So also the M11 blocks that is located west of the west of Stanwig between Belvedere and Ellery have mix of small and large parcels, and all the large parcels are used for manufacturing use, and small parcels of lot sizes 1,800 square feet to 2,500 square feet are used for residential buildings that were built in the 1920s. So that leaves the subject block being block 3161 and 3162. So based on the broad picture of the land use pattern, the large parcels in the area are used for industrial or manufacturing use, and the smaller parcel for residential. And here is the breakdown of the data based on the ZOLA for the subject that I did. There are basically 32 lots on the subject block. Of these 20 lots, that is 62%, are 2,500 square foot or less in lot area. Of these 20 lots, 12, which is 60%, are used for parking lots, warehouse, or used for miscellaneous use, including light industrial and manufacturing use. However, the lot area of these 12 lots are bigger than the subject lots. Lot 7, which is 2,040 square feet in lot area. Sorry. So all the remaining 12 lots are much larger than the subject lot 7. Only 2 lots out of these 12 lots lots 21 and 22 are individually owned and are 1915 square feet, 1915 square foot in lot area. And one of the lot has a 2 FAR building, and the other lot is used with an abutting lot as identified by the applicant as sites 6 and 7. So overall, these existing 12 sites are better situated than the subject lot, and the remaining 8 lots that are there are 2,500 square foot and less, are all developed with either 1 and 2 family or multifamily homes built anywhere between 1899 and 1931. So the subject's site also had a building, residential home, the 2-family home, which was demolished by HPD. So based on the analysis and the history of the blocks and the lots in this area, I'm very satisfied with the uniqueness of it and the hardship posed by it. I still have a question with regards to the proposed building, specifically with regards to the unit layout. I understand that the trends are, there's a change in the trend. Not everybody's looking for, it's not just a market for studios, 1 bedrooms and 2 bedrooms. We do have, and anecdotally, I know there are a lot of people, especially young students or fresh out of college or high school, are basically pooling their resources with their friends and renting space and basically like living another dorm existence, but out of a dorm room in these neighborhoods. So to me, this really feels like it's a dorm existence. And if that's a new trend, I have not seen it in any layouts. Typically, you would see a 1-family, 2-family that has been given to students or those who want to share with others and broken up. I just think this is a very poor layout, regardless of whether you want to attract the dorm-like existence or a 1-family or a 1-bedroom house or whatever. So that is my only concern with this layout, and that's it. Thanks.
Thank you. Commissioner Otley Brown.
So I'm going to just give you my summary to begin with, and then I'll justify it. Conclusion on the financials. This is a bait and switch. They have shot themselves in the foot regarding their credibility. When I went through the first set of financials, I understood that it was a 2017 financial, which was submitted when the application was submitted, and I reviewed it based on that. And even reviewing it based on the 2017 scenario, I noticed that there were issues concerning construction costs being too high, cap rate on the proposed being too high. And I had some questions about the residential rents and the narrative that was in the financial concerning those rents, where they were quoting them, the subject apartments at 1,375 square feet each, but we knew they were 700 square feet each. And then on their adjustments, where they were adjusting downward for negotiability because supply exceeded demand, when New York City is in the middle of a housing shortage with the record low vacancy rates, there was no need to adjust downward for negotiability. So I made very pointed comments, but basically accepted the fact that this was a 2017 report. And as we have instructed applicants over and over again, when we're asking for certain information to be corrected, that's all I expect to see is that information that I pointed out corrected. However, in this case, they took the opportunity to completely upgrade the financials to 2021 in ways that would serve them. So the site value went from $200,000 to $560,000. The industrial and commercial leases, though strangely enough, remained absolutely flat with 2017, and the residential remained ever so slight growth from 2017. A little strange. And the construction costs either stayed the same or went up. The cap rate on the proposed did go down, and that was good. But all that did was shifted my comments about flat rents and high construction rates to the site value and beefed up the site value so that they didn't really have to worry about having to make adjustments to the construction costs. And so therefore, to me, they didn't follow the instructions that we expect them to follow and have stated over and over again for your entire tenure, Chair, as well as time before, time immemorial. And so I have absolutely no confidence in this team's effort to actually give us the true picture of what would go on in this site, either as of right or with the proposal. And so I can't make any recommendations to support this case at this time. And I'm very frustrated because I thought we had done away with all of that kind of back and forth nonsense. And so if you would like to close this case, I would be on board and I would vote yes to close this case.
Okay, thank you. Sad. Thank you very much. Commissioner Sheta.
Thank you, Chair. I feel the pain. Yeah, there's one of the coaches who coached soccer said, whoever you win with, play with. So if this is the way to win, just play it. That simple. So that's why that explains everything on these similar situations for the financial games. Yes, the construction cost is too high. I believe we discussed during the last hearing that they're gonna look at Marshall and Swift. I haven't seen anything on that. The cost per square foot still around 300, maybe more. I don't know why for a building like this that should be very straightforward. So I'm not in support of their financials at all. On the building, on the unit layout, I believe people rent or buy these kind of units to live them, and to live in a place, you have to have some sort of a living room. I'm looking at the units right now, and I don't see any living space, just bedrooms and kitchen. The rest of the unit is kind of like for people to move around. So I'm not sure how come these units are like being designed without living space. So yes, if the applicant is not going to be responsive, I believe we should just move forward, close and vote. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Shibeta.
Oh, okay. Thank you, Chair. I second the statements of both the chair and the Commissioner Otley Brown and Commissioner Sheta. I did not find this application to be responsive. I was not convinced by the hardship argument because I don't really believe that the as of right is not viable. I don't think that was flushed out. I think we've made similar comments at the last hearing, and I don't think that they've been adequately addressed. I have no exception to closing either.
Okay, thank you.
Hey, Chair.
Yes, go ahead.
Yeah, I believe I have one of my comments that the applicant promised that he's gonna be looking at an office use as an alternative and a lesser variance. I wrote that. I honestly, I didn't like look at the video, but I haven't seen this in the submission. So if they promised to do something and they haven't done it, that should be like an indication for the way this case is heading. I just wanted to mention that.
So thank you. Those were my notes as well. That we asked to, because there was a lot of discussion. By the way, we discussed this being dormitory suites at the last hearing. That's why this is deja vu all over again. But at the last hearing, there was a lot of discussion about the neighborhood character on this particular block being very, very commercial. And so there were a lot of instructions about making this either entirely commercial or ground floor commercial or something. And all of that was ignored. So, to the point that a lot of work is done by the commissioners to try to make some sense of this case, but the work isn't done by the applicant. So, so why, right? And this was submitted originally in September of 2017, received a dismissal warning in 2020, in August of 2020. So in other words, it sat in the pile for too long before receiving the warning. And it doesn't really seem like the applicant's heart is in actually going for this. So I agree, if there's ever a variance for this site where a better argument is made, it shouldn't be made by this team, it seems. So, including the ownership team. Okay, so, all right, thank you, everyone. Oh, and I want to thank also Vice Chair Shanda. What you were doing is the work of the applicant. So, that's like an incredible amount of work of analysis and looking at the urban renewal plans and all of that. And that's one of the things that all the commissioners do, that kind of investigation. So essentially I always call it to be the moms and dads for the applicant who can't figure out how to make an argument. And even with all these moms and dads working on this case, the case isn't fully developed, right? So anyway, I appreciate everyone's really hard work on trying to get this to figure this out, but there's only so much we can do for the applicant.
Yeah, I think for me, the issue was really with the layout. I had stated that right from the beginning, this layout, if this is a trend that is happening, then the comps should reflect it. And I did not think the comps or anything were anywhere close to it. And also, this is a policy question. Do we want to encourage this kind of housing typology?
No.
If this is going to be for student dorm, then make it very clear and do the analysis accordingly. But if it is going to be for living purposes, that could be a family living, this is definitely not what I think I would want to support as someone who has been advocating for housing, proper housing. So I cannot consciously do that.
Right, with conscience. Yeah. So also a dormitory is a different use group, strictly associated with an existing contract with a university. So you can't just build a dormitory and hope they'll come. But students who live there for several years, maybe permanently, right, depending on how it works, they need light and air too. They need a living room too. I don't think those are legal units. And I have seen many, many units laid out like this, where the landlord, I think, illegally converts a living room to a bedroom, and everyone sits there and eats on a kitchen table in the middle of the corridor, basically. That's not appropriate living. So, okay, thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Okay, and the final item is item 27, 2019-162, 3336, 3338 Bedford Avenue, Brooklyn.
Okay, the project was modified to respond to many of the board's comments on retention of existing walls and joists. The proposed plans must be fully dimensioned, showing the lengths of the walls to remain and those proposed to be added. The dimension of walls to remain should match that shown on the demolition drawing. So it's really easy. You hold them side by side and you see the demo drawings and you see the dimensions on the demo drawings, and they're exactly the same as the dimensions of the walls to be retained in the new project. That wasn't done. The demolition plans also show some walls to be retained when they're actually being demolished. So correct that. If there is no access to the attic as indicated in the section, why is it so high? Please explain. I'm having a little trouble because the drawings sort of imply, or the application implies, that the attic is being retained, but it's not, it's being removed. And so why do you need such a high attic if it's not accessible? And so they need to provide an attic plan and tell us what's the access to the attic. Is there none? It says it's inaccessible. The sky exposure plane drawings are very difficult to interpret. The architect must follow the instructions in the zoning resolution for diagrams on how to, those wire diagrams tell you exactly whether the building falls within the sky exposure plane and setback, so that you need to do that. Also to establish the proper perimeter wall height. The drawings really weren't helpful in establishing that. There's also a 14-foot 10-inch dimension in the section at the roof level on drawing A9. What is that? It's not connected to anything. It's just like a flying dimension. We need a longitudinal section so we can understand what's going on in the attic. The request is more modest than it was before, with a 22 and a 25-foot rear yard at the first and second floors respectively, and an 8.83 FAR and lot coverage more in line with neighboring properties. No additional information was given, however, about the rear yards adjoining the site, and based on aerial photos, none appear to have anywhere near 25-foot depths at the second floor. Most do have one-story garages in the rear, however. I know the argument is this board often grants the 25-foot second floor, but usually it's because there's reductions elsewhere in the rear yard. Here, there's no reductions. It looks like every building has a 30-foot rear yard with a garage. So not really understanding that. Okay, Vice Chair Shanda.
I know at the last hearing, the board had raised a lot of concerns about the proposed modification. I'm satisfied to see that the applicant has been responsive to the comments that were raised and has scaled the building quite a bit. With regards to the attic plan, I also would like to know how the attic plan is laid out. I see only from the section that it is a pitched roof with not that much of a height of more than 8 feet, a very little bit, but we always look for a plan for the attic, so that should be provided unless it's not accessible at all. But the staircase seems to say it's going up, so it must be landing somewhere. So just for that reason, we need to see it. With regards to the rear yard, I was looking at the block and I was trying to see the argument for a 25-foot. Yes, unlike many of social blocks, this block still has retained a good part of the 30-foot rear yards. However, this building is also proposing to set back quite a bit of the building from the front yard to be respectful of the front yard concept of the build form. So I would be okay in this case to allow for a 25-foot encroachment on the second floor. But, you know, I would prefer it if and since the attic is not habitable, and therefore I'm kind of okay with it.
Okay. The front yard is just complying. They're not setting back.
The second floor is set back.
What?
Yeah. The second floor is set back. The front yard of the first floor is existing 14 foot, and the second floor is set back by another, I think, I was looking at the dimensions. It's set back by 24 foot, 10 inches. So that's one of the reasons why I felt like the building is setting back quite a bit from the front yard, and from the rear yard. It's only the second floor that is going to be encroaching into the rear yard, and the attic is not built to the full height we typically see. It's a much more sloped. So I was okay with it, with those caveats in place.
I'm just looking at the drawings. Okay. All right. Thank you.
If you go to drawing A4, that shows the second floor plan and shows the setback.
Okay. Hold on a second. Let me get there. First floor plan. So the first floor has a 14-foot 6 front yard plus this sort of 6'11" porch thing, right?
Right.
And then, oh, I see what you're saying. Yes, 24 on the second floor. I see.
Yeah.
I see. Okay, fair.
And also it has a balcony. The second floor in the rear has a balcony, and the building is setting back from the balcony. So all in all, I was kind of okay with it.
So the balcony protrudes into the rear yard. The building is 25 feet back from the property.
Right. I mean, if you want to eliminate the balcony to give it more of a clear
like it,
thing, but
yeah.
it's the roof of the ground floor, so
Yeah,
it's really not going to do anything.
Right. Though it's, yeah, there's an odd overhang here so that they get to park in that side, which, by the way, is a good idea. I often wonder, even on the houses that have easements, why they don't just do something like that.
Yeah.
But they don't. I don't think the easement restricts to the sky. It just restricts to allow parking. So I never
Right.
understand why they don't do that.
Right. I think they tried to make the most of it by expanding to the side. So I'm kind of okay with it.
Right.
They're trying to contain the footprint as much as possible.
Right. Understood. Okay, thank you. Commissioner Otley Brown.
I have no additional comments.
Okay. Commissioner Sheta.
Thank you, Chair. I have two comments. One of them is that there is a typo in the submission, the response letter under choice retention. It says that the section of the wall that will be retained, it's 24.5 inches. It should be 25.4 inches. Should be the other way. The other thing is actually, it's not a kind of a comment, it might be an advice. It's just like usual, it's a structural thing. My understanding is this section of the wall is going to be retained, and then they're going to put a beam here, and they're going to, do you see my screen?
Yes.
And this cross section, the section with X, is going to be shedding its load to that free-spanning beam over the kitchen. If this is going to be the case, I would like to alert them that this section of the building will be taken by that beam. Like 50% of the load of the entire building will be taken by this beam. The dangerous thing in this, if the guy who's designing the footings and this beam is not paying attention to that beam, it's going to need to be a very special beam. This is one thing. And the other thing, when that beam sheds its load all the way down to the ground, the footing, the treatment of the footing at this spot, sorry, here and here is going to be, it's going to need to be very special, because like I would say 25% of the building, the entire building load will be coming just to this spot and this spot. This is going to need to be designed structurally in a way to handle that. This is not a continuous wall. It's not going to be a wall footing. It's going to be some sort of a spread footing that's going to be need to like design very carefully. Thank you.
And if they don't do that, that's when you start to see cracking and settling, differential settling in the house. Is that?
I'm not sure if wood cracks. The bad thing about wood and steel is they do not crack. Concrete, I like concrete because our professors told us that concrete complains. That's why they like it. It cracks, it keep crying before it does something nasty. But wood and steel, they do not do the same. So, yeah.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. All right.
Madam Chair, I had a question for Commissioner Sheta. When he showed the plan, it raised the question because the building, the second floor overhangs. So
right. That's
did
what
the analysis, do you have any recommendation, suggestion, Commissioner Sheta? I mean, would that be okay with the way you're?
If they handle it, there is nothing that could be said to be not okay or like absolutely okay. If you handle things right, it's gonna survive. If you do not handle things right, this is gonna be an issue. the issue with good engineers is when they get a house, they look at it as it's a house, or somebody's designing a fence. Like I said before, it's much more likely to get a design fallacy in a, like what we call a trivial structure than in a major structure. When you have a major structure, like a skyscraper or a tall building, you treat this with respect. You in your head mindset, you look at this like, yeah, this is a serious structure. You have to take it seriously. But when people start to handle fencing, like the case of that rooftop, when people handle houses, when people handle like small thing, retaining wall, they see some engineers seem to take it not seriously, and this is when you start seeing problems. So if they gonna do an overhang and they design it properly, I don't see an issue in that. If it's gonna be even supported on 4 sides and it's not done properly, it's gonna be a problem.
Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Shabetto.
Thank you, Chair. I appreciate the scale down of the ask. I find it to be modest, and I do not have any further comments on this.
Okay, thanks. Thank you.
Okay, this concludes the public review session. We will now commence with the public hearing. So we're now having the public hearing for June 15, 2021, 10 a.m. session. The first item is SOC calendar.
Hold on, we don't have Hillside Avenue?
No, number
Oh,
27.
no. Hillside is late.
2 p.m.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, I
May
I
have
have
an
an old
old-
calendar. I
Yeah,
have an old,
Yeah, that's on 2 p.m.
That's why I always look at the address and not the count, not the number of the item. Right, because Tony has the most recent calendar, right? Okay.
Okay, this is the Board of Standards and Appeals public hearing for June 15, 2021, 10 a.m. The first item is SOC calendar, continued hearing items, 2019-299 BZ, 8201 to 8213 Queens Boulevard, Queens.
They're joining. Good morning.
Good morning. Good morning.
Good morning. Let me raise your right hand. Do you affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth in your testimony before this board and to respond honestly to board member questions?
Yes. Yes.
Okay, state your name for the record and proceed.
Okay. Nasir J. Khanzada. I'm the applicant.
Diwakar Gupta, representative of the applicant.
Thank you.
Okay, good morning. We listened to the review session this morning, and we can fix all the issues that were raised this morning. We'll add the landscaping plan. We can clarify the proof of continuous use. We'll arrange it in chronological order, and
Sure.
and we'll provide a chart to show what use it's supporting, which is all gas station. We'll fix the date on the plans to match the submission date. We'll remove that section from the cover letter about the proposed demolition limits and stuff, since that doesn't apply. We'll fix the floor area ratio on the BSA zoning analysis chart.
0.3 to 0.29 to
We'll change the statement of facts to consistently say that 2 tanks are proposed, not 3 tanks. The air pump, so if we do add an air pump, we would, we're not proposing one, but if we did, the location we would suggest would be on the left side of the, by the planters, and near the 2 parking spaces that are there.
So hold on a second. Let us look at that, because we always have a thing about the location. Do you have your plan handy, Vice Chair?
Yes.
yeah, let me go to my modern technology.
Right.
So this is BSA sheet 005, and I think the applicant is referring to providing an air pump that would be located at the tip of the site in front of the landscape area.
Is that
Exactly.
correct? That's
Yes, exactly.
okay. So that sounds like then it'll keep cars are parking on the sidewalk because there are parking spaces allocated, right?
That's what we're not proposing.
Yes. Vice Chair, you agree?
Yes, that would have been my recommended spot also.
Okay, so please indicate that is on the drawing as location of future possible air pump, something like that.
Yes.
Okay,
Sure.
And
The curb cuts on 51st Avenue, so after they're relocated, we're proposing to have 5 feet between those 2 curb cuts.
okay. It's just that it wasn't dimensioned, so please dimension it so we know
Sure.
what we agreed, okay?
The elevations, we're proposing a stucco finish for most of it with tile.
Wait, before you do that. So if I look at the 51st Avenue, the proposed plan, BSA 05, the middle curb cut is not dimensioned
yes, we'll do that.
at
We'll add
all.
the dimension.
Okay, and right, and then you need a dimension for the distance between, and let me just check on the curb cut. Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, so we're proposing 30 feet for all the curb cuts.
Yes, okay.
Okay, and then for the finish on the elevations, we're proposing stucco on top with tile on the bottom.
Okay,
The floor area diagram will clarify it and we'll add the legend.
okay. And also on the drawing, on the side elevations, show stucco and tile, right? Indicate
Yes.
with those words, right? Okay,
Yeah.
go ahead.
The floor area diagram, we'll add that, we'll clarify it and we'll add the legend. That 61 number is just the sum of all the wall that's being removed from the front of the building. We'll break that out into each individual thing being added.
61 is the sum of, sorry, where is this?
So it's the 10.
3-1 I have.
Yeah, so it's 10 feet, 2.5 inches plus 28 feet, 2.5 inches plus 1 foot and going around to all the part that's removed at the front of the building.
That's 391.
Okay, so the front of the building isn't dimensioned. That's part of the
Oh,
problem.
sorry, it's dimensioned on the floor area diagram. So that's what.
Oh, okay. It's
Yeah, BSA
Or-
006.
No, so BSA at 6, it's dimensioned on the floor area diagram as 44.2, right? So, the main confusion then is what's new, what's old, right? To clarify where that is.
Okay.
Because it
So we'll
looks
clarify
like
that.
you're keeping the entirety of that new existing structure except for that 14-foot 10 in the back. Not clarifying that you're removing that entire front wall. You are? Is that what you're doing?
Yes. Pieces of wall, only piece of wall.
Right, so we're removing, can you see? Yeah, okay.
Yes.
So we're gonna remove this section.
Oh, hold that up higher. Hold that, or just use your main plan. Use the main plan.
Okay, so over
Plan on
here,
Yeah.
we're removing this part of the wall.
Oh. Oh,
And this part.
And this part, so that way we can have access to the rest of the part that we're proposing.
no, I didn't even see that part is, so the convention of an existing wall is 2 lines, not 1, right? What you've drawn to me looked like like a concrete base, like a concrete sidewalk.
Okay, we'll clarify that.
The convention for a wall to be removed is 2 lines dashed, just like you show on that 14-foot 10 section.
This would be personal.
Okay, so we'll show it properly.
We'll show double wall.
Okay.
Okay.
Right. Oh, I didn't even realize that was the area to be removed. Oh, okay. So now I'm pretty confused about where the existing building is. Can you hatch in?
The black color.
Right, so this is the existing. And the thick black color is referring to the existing walls that
Okay.
will remain.
Remain. All right. So you really need to use the proper convention to indicate all of the existing walls to remain and all of the existing walls to be removed. So it's very clear what the envelope of existing is. And then to give us the dimension, the area, because I don't see a floor area calculated for the existing to be removed. Like you have this floor area diagram underneath where you're treating that thing on the bottom as though it's not really in anything, and you don't show the area. You don't show the area to be removed.
Okay, I'll add that to the over here, but the calculation on the side shows that it's 391 square feet.
Right,
But I'll add
right.
it over here as well.
I see 391, but I don't know where it comes from. That's why I was asking that. Right?
We'll put the math in.
Okay. So you need, there's two areas. There's the area inside of the part that you're retaining that needs to be shown, plus the area of that part that you're just demolishing. Okay. All right. That's very important because that was lost in translation. Okay. Thank you.
Okay.
Vice Chair Shonda, did you have another comment?
You know, I raised my hand for a question and now it has completely slipped my mind, and it will come back to me and I will raise it then.
Okay.
Yes, I know what it is. My question was, is it possible to provide a street tree along 51st Avenue where one of the curb cuts is going to be removed? This is the, where it's, I think that would also further ensure that the vehicle movement is contained within where it should be.
Do you mean in between the two curb cuts or closer towards?
Yeah, we can do that because that's more than 25 feet. We can accommodate a tree easily. No problem.
Yeah.
We can do that. Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
No problem.
Okay, thank you.
No problem.
Sorry, which street, Queens Boulevard?
51st Avenue.
51st.
Wait, this is.
Where you're removing the curb
51st.
cut?
It's gonna be 5 feet.
Right, where one of the curb cuts is going to be removed. So there's enough
Yes.
space between the two proposed curb cuts
Yes,
to have one street tree. I don't think that's possible along Queens Boulevard.
right, okay. Because there's a light pole. What's that little dip in the, what is that little dip in the curb that's labeled E?
This is the curve.
That is the shape of the curb. I think there's a manhole or something over there.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Sorry.
We're going to file to the Parks Department, whatever we can accommodate the tree on the property, we will put it on the property. Whatever we cannot, we will put offsite. We pay for the Parks Department, but we prefer to put it on site. It's cheaper and it will
Better.
beautify the property.
Yes, thank you. We appreciate that. That's what we want to. Okay. All right. Anything you left out that we interrupted?
That's it on all time.
Current site is an area. Okay, I think we have everything.
Good.
All right. So I guess let's
Chair.
go. Yeah. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Tracy.
I just wanted to confirm, since the board seems happy with the new response and configuration, that we don't need DOT comment on this.
I'm okay with it because they reduced the number of dispensers, right? Everybody else okay with this? No DOT? Yes, I think. That's,
Okay,
thank you.
thank you.
All right, thanks. I'm just making a note. Okay, so let's go to the public.
Tracy, your hand is still up?
I can take it down.
Oh, okay.
Oh, she took it down. She's fast. Okay, go ahead.
So the case we're currently discussing is 2019-299 BZ, 8201 to 8213 Queens Boulevard, Queens. Should you wish to call in, the number is 646-558-8656. The webinar ID number is 952-8018-3173. And the passcode, should you require it, is 156709. When you call in, you can press *9 to raise your hand and *6 to unmute. If you are in the Zoom room already, please press your Zoom hand. Raise your Zoom hand.
Right.
How
Okay.
much time will you need?
Well, give me a chance.
Oh, sorry. I was
So-
writing something and I just.
Yeah, so the first I just want to make sure that you picked up, we're missing the landscaping detail.
About that.
Right? You got that, right?
Yes.
Okay, so then, I would like to close this, so I'd just like to know how much time you need to just make those not very many corrections.
Yeah, we can definitely make a submission within a week or so.
Okay, I don't think it needs to be a week, but all right, so I'm gonna just say 2 weeks, because I don't think a week's gonna make a difference in terms of when I put you on for. Okay, great. All right, let me just make sure. There are people whose names I don't recognize in the waiting room. If you'd like to speak on this application, please raise your Zoom hand. This is application 2019-299BZ. Okay. All right then, so I'd like to make a motion to close.
Motion to close, Chair Promoter,
Aye.
Vice Chair Chanda,
Aye.
Commissioner Otley Brown,
Aye.
Commissioner Shepherd,
Aye.
Commissioner Shabeta.
Aye.
Thank you. And I just want to, because we closed, we can't have a back and forth about this, but make sure that your cover letter explains what you're responding to in our last comments. So, and where the answer is, so it's easy for us to find and we can do it fast. And date your drawings, please, always, right? I know your computer has dated them, but we don't see what your computer does. We only see a very clean drawing that was prepared 5 years ago or whatever, and never changed, right?
Agreed. No problem.
Okay, all right, thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
New cases, item number 23-1809BZ, 250 West 54th Street, Manhattan.
Okay, I have to recuse from this one.
Madam Vice Chair.
Sorry.
Mr. Overland, who else is with you? Walter Maffey?
Yes, ma'am. Walter Maffei.
Maffei, sorry. Is that it?
That's it, ma'am.
Okay, raise your right hand. Mr. Maffei, could you unmute, please? Let me swear you in, Mr. Overland. Mr. Maffei, I'm going to swear you in if you're going to speak, but you got to unmute. Mr. Overland, let me swear you in if you're going to do the talking. Do you affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth in your testimony before this board and to respond honestly to board member questions?
I do.
Okay, please proceed, and I'll swear Mr. Maffei if he speaks.
Thank you very much. Madam Vice Chair, Commissioners of the board, my name is John Overland. I'm associated with Klein Sloat P. LLC, the attorneys for the applicant Crunch LLC. This is an application for an extension of time to receive, to apply for and obtain the certificate of occupancy pursuant to the 2019 board BSA resolution.
Mr.
extending our
Overland,
permit.
I think
Just have a second.
there's a screen share that's happening that needs to be,
I'm
Could
sorry.
you reduce your screen? Thank you.
thank you.
Go ahead, Mr. Overland. I'm sorry.
Continue, Mr.
sorry.
Overland.
I'm sorry. And as the commissioners noted during the executive session, the architect for Crunch actually commenced work on the new revised C of O before the resolution, and what had attended several meetings and appointments with the DOB towards the same when he was directed by the Department of Buildings to come back and ask for an extension of time because our time pursuant to the resolution had expired. Listening to the executive session, I believe that there were two questions that the commissioners had for us. And one was the status of any violations. I reviewed the DOB website as the commissioners were discussing the case. And I found one violation, that being number 352-496-82 H as in Henry, that was issued to the landlord and referring to the need to obtain a new certificate of occupancy. Right now, the gym is operating without revised C of O, as the board knows. That's the only one I could find. I respectfully point out to the board that this violation is also the subject of litigation between the landlord and the gym, and which is still pending a decision by the court. As for addressing compliance issues with the 2019 resolution, just briefly, there's the only condition we're not in compliance with is the actual requirement that we obtain a revised C of O. Where our efforts were hampered somewhat considerably by the COVID-19 restrictions, and we were abruptly directed by the DOB to obtain an extension of time. I'm here for any other questions the board may have, or Mr. Maffei's here as well.
Mr. Oberlin, yes, it is kind of unfortunate that you have been working with the DOB to resolve the issues, but because of unforeseen circumstances. There was two of our commissioners raised a question with regards to if there are any other complaints from the neighbors or any others that you know of that we could be alerted to.
None that have been directed my attention. I've not been made aware of any noise complaints or anything like that. I know this is something that's always of interest to the board. To my knowledge, there's been no complaints from any neighbors regarding noise from the gym or anything.
Has the gym been in operation all of last year?
Except for during the time of the enforced quarantine. Also, there's been no change of ownership, and I think a major item for the board was the issue of massages. There are no massages being performed at this PCE.
Okay. Commissioners? Commissioner Shetta, do you have any?
No, I'm fine with just this statement on the record.
Okay, thank you. Should we then go to any comments from? I guess we don't need to hear from the other gentleman from your team.
I'm here. I don't know.
Okay, then let's go to the public hearing.
Oh.
Okay, the case we are currently discussing is 1809 BZ, 250 West 54th Street, Manhattan. Should you wish to call in to comment on this case, it is 646-558-8656. The webinar ID number is 952-8018-3173, and the passcode is 156709. Once you have called in, you can press *9 to raise your hand and *6 to unmute to speak. If you're in the Zoom room already for this case, 1809 BZ, please raise your Zoom hand.
Mr. Oberlin, while we are waiting for public to join in for any comments, if any, how much time do you need to rectify all the issues and secure a CO? And also keeping in mind that there's a text amendment that is in play. Are you aware of the text amendment that has been proposed with regards to PCE?
If I'm correct, I believe it's that I can't articulate it well. I think that there's something about the extent that that gymnasiums will no longer be heard or anything like that. Will no longer need to be heard. I'm aware of that, ma'am. As for the amount of time, I would defer to Mr. Maffei on that. He's the one doing the heavy lifting on the C of O.
So I think we'll need to swear in Mr. Maffei then. Right, Ms. Matias?
Yep.
Can you hear me? Hello?
Yeah, Mr. Maffei?
Yes. Can you hear me?
Okay, yes, I can hear you. I just want to swear you in. Do you affirm please don't speak while I'm reciting the affirmation. Do you affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth in your testimony before this board, and to respond honestly to board member questions?
I do.
Okay. The chair, the vice chair has asked a question about the C of O.
Yes.
Vice
How
Chair, do you
much
want to repeat
time
it?
would you need?
Well, if I may, currently, by the way, the video is closed. I cannot share my screen.
We disabled sharing screen because it was taking over the entire screen.
I see. Okay. Well, anyway, the point being that currently dealing with the Department of Buildings has become a nightmare. We really, if we had a proper examiner, we would be able to get this thing resolved very quickly. We have answered all objections. However, the bureaucratic system of obtaining appointments and dealing with the hierarchy is extremely difficult, to say the least. I've done my best, and remember, I've been licensed in New York City, in New York State, since 1983. I am no spring chicken when it comes to dealing with setbacks, especially with the Department of Buildings. However, the assignment of this application to this one particular examiner has created a very serious problem with regards to getting things addressed in a timely fashion. Furthermore, it's extremely difficult now because New York City Department of Buildings has a general rule that after 5 appointments with an examiner, it has to be reviewed and approved by the deputy chief plan examiner, whether any appointments are issued thereafter. And it's ironic that we received objections on the 5th appointment. So that kind of put us behind the 8 ball. And then, of course, this is a situation that has spread over the past, I would say, 8 to 10 months. So it has become a virtual nightmare, especially for us trying to deal with the department.
Okay, so I think I'm sorry to hear the situation that you're in. I'm trying to see how much time you need to tie over and how the proposed text amendment, once that is, we do not know when that is going to get approved. I think November is kind of the target. Correct me if I'm wrong, Council.
At the end of the year, I believe.
End of the year, right? So I'm trying to see if we should give an extension for a year and that will kind of tie over, but that may become moot once the text gets adopted, right?
Yeah, except I guess my only question is whether whether there might be delays from the private litigation.
Okay. So best is to do it for 2 years. That way it ties over enough.
That would be, I believe, adequate, and I would appreciate that. Given the unknown circumstances that we're dealing with, again, circumstances change on a day-to-day basis, and it creates a multitude of problems for us dealing with the department bureaucratically. It is a situation where I can only wish that things were back to normal, so to speak. However, I don't know if that's ever going to happen this year or next. The Department of Buildings has experienced tremendous upheaval with regards to dealing with applications and dealing with appointments and dealing with situations where a normally seasoned examiner would have had no problems dealing with my responses. However,
Mr. Mafe, we hear you. So I just want to ask the commissioners if we granted a 2 years, and council, please jump in. Would that be sufficient?
I think 2 years would be appropriate.
Yeah, I'm commissioners. Am I Commissioner Sheta, would you be okay? Commissioner Shabeta?
I'm okay with that.
Yeah, I'm okay with that.
What about council? Is that a reasonable thing?
Sure. So that would be 2 years from the issuance of the resolution.
Yeah. Okay, and would you, I think we can close this and we will schedule. Yeah,
Yes.
commissioners, we can, okay, all right.
Okay, so you want to make a motion to close?
Yes, make a motion to close, please. Thank you, Mr. Oberlin and Mr. Maffei, and wish you all the best.
Thank you very much. I really appreciate your hearing us.
Thank you. Just so I'm clear, is this being scheduled for a vote at a later date or?
Yes. We don't close and vote, so we will, Ms. Matthias, the project manager will get back to you with the scheduled date for the vote. I
Thank
don't
you
think we
very
have
much.
anything, we don't need any new submission. What we have is adequate. We just need to schedule a date based on the
Thank you all
calendar.
very much.
So it should be pretty soon, and then you'll get the resolution shortly thereafter.
Thank you all very much.
Okay,
And especially the expedited hearing. I sincerely appreciate it.
Thank you.
okay. So
Thank
the
you
motion
all.
to close. Madam Vice Chair,
Yes,
Commissioner Otley Brown,
Aye.
Commissioner Sheta,
Aye.
Commissioner Shabeta.
Aye.
Okay. All righty.
you.
Thank
Thank
you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Have a wonderful day.
You too. Madam Chair? Back on? Okay. Is Madam Chair back in?
Yeah, I am.
Okay, I didn't see it. Okay, the next item is item number 24, 33902BZ, 14665 Springfield Boulevard, Queens.
This is a large applicant team, so if you can raise your hand, that would be helpful.
Hi,
You know when everyone's ready.
would you like me to name, I'm just looking through, so I see Marty Klein as the architect.
Hello, how are you?
Hi, I'm just looking through everyone I can see.
Jeff Rubin,
Jeff Rubin, yeah, Zachary Campbell, great.
Zachary Campbell.
Barbara should be in this group.
You see Barbara? See Barbara. Oh, there's Barbara.
Got Barbara, yes. I think those are the main players. I know there's other people that could join, but those are the people I'm going to need to speak. So. I think we're good.
Okay, so I can start swearing in?
Yeah.
Okay, raise your right hands. Ms. Cohen, unmute, please. Mr. Campbell, unmute. Do you affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth in your testimony before this board and to respond honestly to board member questions?
I do.
I do.
Yes.
I do. Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Hi. Elise Fullader from Eric Polanic PC on behalf of the applicant. We have a big team with us here today and we'll go through the comments. I thought I could share the plans at least to begin with so we can discuss more easily, if that's okay. Where is my choices? Okay. Oh, geez. Here we are. Share. And those are the right plans. Okay. Can everyone see that while it loads? Yeah, right.
Yes.
Thank you. I'm trying to go to a site plan just to have that in the background so we can discuss. So firstly, I would like to discuss the statement of facts. We really listened many times to the conversation with Commissioner Brown last time. And so the statement of facts was really tailored to that conversation, but we're more than happy to add substantial prejudice information, go back and look at that Bronx catering case and add information about that and whatever can be to make it more clear. But a lot of programmatic needs information was put into it in order to address why we need this building to be the way it is specifically for Brinks. So that is why that was like that. You mentioned a random email as well that you saw attachments on June 11th. That was supposed to be attached it with an email from the community board 13 who did not know how to get in touch with your board. And it was just talking about where the angled parking came from.
Oh, okay.
So that's really all that was. And in those were the attachments in that email explaining where because they had reached out to the Queens borough president. So I don't know if you saw that email, but I can resubmit it. And they also spoke about it in their recommendation, which you saw.
I think they misunderstood the question. We were just wondering about the history of the parking, not whether or not the parking is a good idea. It's obviously used, right? It was really like, how come that happened?
And I think they tried to answer it in a lot of different ways. They just wanted to try to cover it, but I think people kind of know, but nobody knows that much detail about that. But that email might be helpful, so I'll resubmit that email. And then in terms of the plans, we heard your comment about landscaping. We will look into a landscape architect to do a more detailed landscaping plan.
I just, because you have so many cases, that should just be a running theme for you. Always it has to be a landscape architect, not just somebody in the architect's or engineer's office who puts down shapes, right? It really needs to be a real landscape architect, okay?
And we do have a masonry wall, but we wanted to clarify that. What page should I go to, Martin?
On S12, I mean, the enclosure around, if you go to, first of all, B81 and zoom into the trash enclosure, it calls out for it to be a new stucco wall with a metal slatted gate.
Right.
And
So
then
that's-
on S12, it calls out for that, it just shows a detail of the structure.
But
if you want, we can add an elevation and a section of the gate if you want.
So the gate cannot be metal slatted. It has to be
It's solid slatted.
a solid steel gate. We have sample details, which most Fullader, I think you've had them on your own projects. Just forward them to them. So we don't do these open.
No, it's not open. It's just when they create the gate, it's an actual tube gate. So it's and when they put the slat, they're slats, so they have delineation, but they're not open slats.
Oh
yes, it's just how they make the gate. So it's called a slatted front, but it does not have. And I understand since there's no elevation, you can't see it solid. So we'll add elevation details and as per the standards.
And make sure these are key to the plans, because otherwise they're just pretty
We will.
pictures. I don't know.
Understood. Understood.
Okay, so that was the trash. Regarding the lighting plan, we heard your comment, and also not these people, but me and your board had a conversation about lighting plans yesterday. So we're going to have a conversation with our lighting study consultants who are not on this call right now, but we're going to have a conversation with them and we will revise that accordingly.
And to pick that up, we're just interested in the impact on the residential properties. You don't need to be giving us lighting levels in the middle of the parking area, right? But the impact on the neighbors is what we're after. And the measurements of the lighting consultants were at 3 feet and 0 feet. But the issue is what's at the top of the fence and then what's on the other side of the property also, right? To the extent they allow you access.
Understood.
But you know, you can even, like with an extension, you can put a meter at the end of a telescopic extension and measure that way. So instead of actually physically going onto the property, it seems to me.
And we will send this hearing as well as other hearings recently to the lighting consultants and have a conversation about what needs to be done.
Okay.
Looking at what other issues came up for me to discuss. Landscaping, drawings, lighting plan. Okay, so I think I'm going to turn it over right now to Zach, who's going to explain about the wall because he provided that. And
I just want to, I'm just looking at the notes for you as opposed to the retaining wall. To note about the parging, it needs to be stucco finish, residential quality stucco finish, either painted or tinted stucco. Okay.
And I think Zach's going to talk to you a little bit about that right now.
Okay.
Zach?
Yes, thank you. So would it be okay if I shared my screen?
I'll share mine. Stop share. Okay, there you go.
All right, share
That works.
screen. All right. So, I believe Commissioner Sheta kind of got it correct here, but I'll just point it out because it kind of ties into what I would like to talk about with the parging, our plan there, and the fence detail in general, just to make sure we capture exactly what you're looking for. So on this plan, you have 3 cut sections. Section 1 is here. Section 3 is here. So when you go to each detail, like here, section 1, you can see the low end and the high end. Section 2, again, here's the street. You can kind of see a car. You can see our current fence on top of the wall. You can even see kind of the barbed wire. I get it. There's no dimensions on here. So we can,
more than no dimensions, you know it's a car. I see it as a blob. These look like really abstract paintings to me. I thought this reminds me of the San Exupery elephant eaten by a snake. That's what I thought I was looking at.
Understood. So what we'll do is we'll tie it back in a number of ways. Obviously, we have the cut section here, but we have these spot shots elevations, which will also show on these elevations. We'll label things so that your eye can easily go from this back to this and understand exactly what you're looking at. So totally understood. And I just wanted to talk quickly about the detail itself. So the board's requested that we called it parge, but really it's parge and then finish with a stucco. It's something that we've done in that's not it, other parts of the building, and it will be residential quality. It'll look great. We have a really good guy who does this for us, and we take pride in our property. As you'll see, as soon as we got the property, we completely parged and painted and put a new roof on the full property. But to talk about this wall, that aside, so that's a given, we'll do. It's been requested that we replace this fence with the residential style that we have on the other frontage. Yes. And I just wanted to say, certainly the razor wire should come off, and it will. But we have very good relationships with this neighbor here, as well as the neighbor on the corner, which is this guy. And one of them gave us a letter, which we've submitted, giving support to our application. This elderly couple indicated they wanted to get us a letter, but they can be difficult to get in touch with. I see them in person at least a couple of times a year. We help them with the maintenance of their property occasionally because they sometimes don't know who to contact. Like when this wire fell, we used our contacts at Verizon and Con Ed to help them out. We have a great relationship with them, and I just wanted to kind of state for the record before we take out our mesh screening here, this kind of fabric type screening that was installed to benefit the view for our neighbors. If we take this out, which again, if that's what you want, we are glad to do it. I really think it's going to, they're not going to be happy that now they do actually have to look at the parking lot when before they were looking at a well-maintained kind of mesh screen. So I just wanted you to consider it one more time.
I'm sure we could find something that's nicer than that then.
Okay.
So whenever I look at this, I'm like, oh, this must be a minimum security prison that's on the other side of this wall that has this nice, what you call mesh on top of a concrete block wall, right? So if you were doing this, I'm just playing it like this. If this was a high-end residential neighborhood, what would the barrier look like so that the people who run the community betterment and improvement society don't try to run you out of town? It wouldn't look like this, right? So, so when we talk about the metal picket, which you thought was the appropriate thing to put on the commercial side, then you could also, as Commissioner Shabeta have something that that is enclosed as to these neighbors. So there are residential versions of metal picket or other types of picket fencing that is residential, so you don't see across. It doesn't need to be prison quality. So come up with something that looks residential in character, that conceals, but you know, you also have an issue that we're trying to address of noise, right? And so we've been finding that mounting some sort of an acoustical screening to the fencing material becomes necessary. So you don't have the full answer yet, right? From the acoustical consultants.
Understood completely. I think that makes a lot of sense. I think that's a good compromise, and we'll start looking at some details on something that looks better than this, and potentially the acoustic screening can be affixed to it. But I'll have Philip Labib talk about acoustics because that's not my area of expertise so much. And I guess that's it for me.
I'm sorry, can you go back to the picture before?
This one?
You see where the fire hydrant? No, the one before that.
This one.
The street, yes, this one. You see where the fire hydrant is? Can you zoom into the wall? More, right behind the hydrant.
Yep.
Yeah. You see there is cracking in the wall. Down. You see that diagonal crack and then vertical crack? This wall is going to be supporting right behind it a parking lot that will have trucks parking there. Please have an engineer look at it. This is for you. It's not a requirement, but it's a recommendation. You could take it or leave it. But I would get someone to take a look at it and make sure that it's integral.
Absolutely.
So, and I just want to go back again to, so the wall that we're looking at right now behind the fire hydrant, that doesn't need to be concealed because there's a garden that's going to be heavily landscaped there. So the idea of putting a garden that no one can see makes no sense. The issue is the wall, the adjacency to that house, right? So it's I don't know which way is north here. It's the east-west wall that we're talking about that, yeah, is the opacity issue and also the noise issue, right? As opposed to the street front, the Springfield Lane street front, the whole point of landscaping that area is so that community walks by a garden that is behind a metal picket fence, right?
Okay. I agree. I think if we can keep this wall opaque and then keep these walls opaque, which you see our neighbor himself chose to use like a similar detail for better for worse, opaque, then this wall, which goes along Springfield, which we are going to be, or the fence, which we're going to be bringing back as per our plans to put the plantings on the outside. If that needed to be metal picket, that would be, you know, I'm not sure if these neighbors, I don't know, would mind as much. I haven't been fortunate enough to get into contact with them and get their opinion. But I agree.
Okay.
Okay, that's all I got.
Mhm.
And then I guess, Jeff, would you like to just speak briefly on the noise study?
Sure. Just confirming you can hear me.
Yes, we can.
Okay, thank you. So Philip Beebe Associates initially prepared a noise study when the application was in a different form, and it was really looking more, according to Secret Technical Manual guidance, at this site itself as whether it needed noise attenuation. Subsequently, when the application was modified to the SOC application, and at the last BSA hearing, we were asked to provide a noise study that looked at the impact of noise on neighboring residential properties. And then we got some further guidance from staff. And we prepared that study and submitted it as part of this application. And I understand that has been received by BSA, and then, if I understand correctly, sent to DEP, which is doing a technical review of it, but their technical review is still in progress. I listened to the review session earlier today, and I understand that there's another project that was mentioned by one of the commissioners as being perhaps a relevant type of study that could be applied to this one. And I guess I would just say, in terms of processes, I think we will wait on what guidance we get from BSA staff. But if we're asked to do a study, another type of study, we'll do that in response. My only comment at this time is that our study found that there's no noise mitigation required for the residential properties. But as I say, I think that's subject to DEP review.
So, well, yes and no. So what happened on that other site, which was very, very carefully done, they realized that, well, for one, that site, because of COVID, wasn't operating. So they couldn't be measuring noise produced by many trucks that would normally come there. So what they did is they brought a truck onto the site, and they did measurements of the noises that truck makes when it's backing up, when the engine is idling, even the sound of backing up, beeping, and other types of things, right? And they looked at the highs that are caused during that time. And then they estimated how many trucks would be moving at a given time, which you can do because you're in operation, right? You could also do this with a simulation where all the trucks that would be operating are operating. You could do something like that. But what they did is they took one truck, they measured that, they estimated how many trucks would be operating at one time, and then they modeled that for the various receptors and concluded on the type of attenuation that would be necessary. Now, those are semi-trailers. I see you actually do have in the photograph you provided to us a couple of very large trucks that come onto the site. So that may be your worst case scenario, but that was better than just picking some random times during the day, because it was more representative of the actual peak noise levels. And so that was what the target was, to attenuate for the peak noise levels.
Okay. I mean, my response to that is, we'll look at that memo and the guidance that your staff provides.
Okay. Well, yes, but I'm just giving you a hint. That's what
we'll contact Tracy about that, and we will ask your board for a copy of whatever they did. So
okay. Commissioner Sheta, go ahead.
Yeah, I just wanted to say, if you believe that the circumstances at your site are a bit different, and I agree, your site is in operation, the other site was not. But the methodology you followed in your study by just picking some time window in the AM, in the noon, in the afternoon, made me skeptical about whether you captured the most impactful noise effects or not. So that's why I said, look at the other study. If you don't want to do it the way they have done it, be my guest. but I would ask you to like monitor within long enough time window to capture the noise events that need to be captured. In other words, in your study, you should tell us what time window you monitor through and what kind of events happen, like a truck hung at this time. So the study should be like covering all the aspects of noise that could be implemented at the site and could impact the adjacent residential. You could do it the way A or way B, it's up to you.
As I say, I don't want to be committal on exact methodology at this point, but we'll look into it and take your comments under serious consideration, as well as any feedback we get from DEP.
Okay, so yes, okay, fine. I do have some questions though, based on your actual noise study. The table shows noise levels very high at two of the receptors at different times of the day, as high as 87. It's not really, it's LMAX, those various things, but as high as 87 dBA, and on another as high as 89 dBA. And then the conclusion is that you don't need to attenuate. I don't get that.
So what I'll say is that we follow the sort of seeker DEP methodologies for both reporting data, but also for which indicators are used for making impact determinations. And I think the ones that you cited are not the ones that are used to make the attenuation determinations. So we are required to report them, but there's a different indicator that is used. And it's what's called the L10 indicator.
Okay.
So my defense would be that we follow like the standard methodologies that seeker and DEP have us follow.
Right. So let me give you, so the board has two different sets of criteria. There's the seeker criteria where you need to comply with seeker. And then there's the board, the commissioner's criteria, where the commissioners take the position that any commercial use cannot impose any, let's say, disagreeable noise sources or lighting sources on adjoining property. It's not the same as the seeker threshold. So when we say you can't have even 0.1 lumen spread on the adjoining property, that's not a seeker standard. That's the board standard that we don't want your use to pose a disagreeable situation on the neighbors, even if after all this time, the neighbors have gotten used to it and they don't complain. That's not our standard. Our standard is the neighbor shouldn't know you exist to the extent that that's possible. So don't fall back all the time on your seeker standard. Understand that we don't expect to see, and you're not going to measure from the nearest open window, closed window condition. You're measuring to the property line. Okay, we don't do closed window conditions because people open their windows, they sit in their backyards. Okay, so I kind of need you to get off the seeker mantra and understand that we're talking about sort of disagreeable, not even rising to the level of nuisance. Okay.
Okay.
One more thing, in the noise study, that under noise monitoring, you said that you measured, you monitored 20-minute spot of the existing noise. When you say that, you did, I just want to make sure that I got it right. 20-minute spot in the AM, 20-minute spot midday, 20-minute spot afternoon. Am I correct?
Yes, there are 3 different monitoring locations, each for 20 minutes, if I'm remembering correctly.
And did you, during that 20-minute window, how did you determine whether you're gonna monitor from 9:30 to 9:50 or from 9:40 to 10? How did you, like, what is the criteria for picking that 20-minute time window?
Well, I would say the criteria for picking, say, within these general time bands of, say, 9 to 10, around that, is based on the busyness of the lot.
But correct me if I'm wrong, if I'm not a sound engineer, but if I'm doing this, I would first do the ambient noise monitoring, like monitor for like a day span, and then pick the quietest period of time in the AM, in the midday, and then in the afternoon. And then during that quietest period, check for different site activities, like one truck is arriving, one truck is leaving, one truck is honking. I believe this is the way that should be done. Am I missing something?
Well, what I guess I would rather like look at this more carefully, and rather than give you an answer right now, is to sort of to respond in writing, because you know, I also want to talk to my internal experts, but you know, I just to make a commitment on that point, to sort of say that I understand what your concern is, and I'd rather sort of address it in writing.
Thank you.
Okay, okay.
And we understand that we're figuring that piece of it out, and that might add acoustical wall or something or other. But I did want to say after that comment that what if we can start doing any of these repairs now, just to get things moving along, or get plans approved, that we can start moving along. So because it's a nice time of year, you know,
Right.
that would be really helpful. And
Well, so at this point, let's just stay with the seeker for a
Oh, I
minute.
thought we were done with that. That's
Tracy raised your hand. So Tracy Benke, go ahead.
Oh, I just wanted to add that, so the DEP did issue comments on the other case on the noise study. They haven't signed off on the methodology, and the applicant's supposed to actually respond to that this week.
Mhm.
So it's there's, I can send the current study and the comments from DEP, and if we get a new submission, so they could take a look at everything.
Okay,
Thank
great.
you.
Thank you.
Right, and I guess I would also ask too, since the chair mentioned that there's, you know, the board has its own standards apart
Right.
from the seeker standards. If that can sort of also be put in writing for us. I mean, I've heard what you said, but I just want to make sure it's just helpful to sort of be able to respond, sort of, you know, writing to writing.
You have to review what the commissioner said, and our administrative notice regarding sound. I could send that to you.
Okay, thank you. That's very helpful.
But I'd also recommend that you listen to the hearing on the Rockaway Boulevard case, because most of the discussion was about noise. The vast majority of the discussion was about noise, and the consultant was extremely responsive. And they have a very difficult site right up adjacent to residential, similar to yours. Maybe not as large a parking area as you have. So yeah, so I really recommend you listen to that, because that's what gave a lot of guidance to the noise consultant. So okay, so Commissioner Shanda has her hand up. Go ahead.
Thank you. Just something I saw in the plan, the building is set back about 7 feet, 7 inches from the residential building, the 3-story masonry building that is located on Springfield Lane in the rear. What is happening there? I don't think we saw any photos of that condition, so that's why I'm asking.
Where are you talking about? Say that again.
It's on the north side. The building kind of is an L shape sitting, right? And then it steps back along the rear, but it sets back 7 foot 7 inches from the northern lot line that abuts the nearest residential building.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not sure what's happening there, so I just kind of wanted to know.
I think it's the same. That's the same wrap that they were showing you on the street view.
No. Sorry.
No, it comes further down and then goes in for 7 foot 7 inches.
Yeah, it's
Right.
It's this
right
portion.
there.
Yeah.
So that same fence came down and goes back to the building there.
Oh, it goes back all the way down there?
Yes. I think you could, when you're looking at the street, you could see that it extends past the face of the house and continues down. I don't know, Zach, if you can reshare your screen.
Yeah, I can, and I can. I'll share the screen and I'll show you. It actually returns back to the house. So, if you're seeing my screen, the fence returns back here to the property, and then this paved area, basically our neighbor like uses it as their own parking lot. Sorry.
Go up, young man.
So this is the area in question here.
Yeah.
The property line, our property line actually goes, 7 feet, 7 inches.
Okay.
Our building is 7 feet, 7 inches from the property line, but it's just paved area. We have a little camera here, paved area that they use for their own parking.
So they've sort of taken over a little 7 feet of your property, essentially.
Yeah, and to be completely honest with you, I never noticed that. So just now.
So
I thought we were on the property line, but we're not.
right. So, make sure you let them know that's your property. Otherwise, someday it could be their property. Just saying. Okay.
I actually think they changed that law in our favor in New York in like 2008. You have to show good faith for. I learned that at law school.
What do you have to show?
Good faith that you took, and how can you take someone else's property in good faith? It's like New York made it really difficult to do adverse possession.
Oh man. Okay.
So, someone's property, it's pretty hard to still for 10 years or whatever.
It looks like it could be in good faith. They could have actually thought it was theirs.
Yeah,
but it's they made the standard a lot more difficult to do adverse possession.
Right.
Sure.
I thought it had to be I like the word notorious. I didn't think something that's notorious can be in good faith. Anyway, okay. So to Ms. Fullader's question about going ahead and doing improvements, the improvements would be the landscaping and the fencing, but the landscaping is still up in the air because we don't have good drawings. And the fencing, there's somewhere you can do, like you could do the stuccoing. I'm not saying the word parging because I associate parging with whitewashing and smearing. So I'm saying stucco. You could do the stucco work now and the open metal picket in the area where it's open metal picket. But that's kind of silly. You're bringing in a fence contractor and sending them away and then bringing them back. So that sounds like more money.
So I guess I was just saying, is there a way we can bring back maybe just, I know there's other open questions, but plans soon so we can get this work.
So yeah, so for instance, but you haven't engaged a landscape architect yet. So
I think that, Zach, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that the people that do lighting also have a landscape engineer on staff, and we could.
That's right. We can have the landscape plan, which in general is going to have the same premise of the plan that we've already provided, but we can have a plan within 2 weeks maximum.
Okay. All right. So okay. Sorry. Go ahead.
I just want to note that with regard to the fencing, especially on the residential side, some of the acoustical fencing is rather nicely designed, and you should certainly look into that.
Yes.
Noted. Thank you.
Terrible, and some is terrible. So there's
some is absolutely not
between terrible and
not something I would
I
recommend.
think altogether we've seen a lot of options, so I can show them options from other projects.
Okay. So I don't know if there were any other issues that you wanted to go over. We can go to the public if not.
I think the thing I didn't mention was we can put wheel stops, but that's not really a big deal.
No, okay. And that'll be shown on the revised plan anyway, right? Okay, so then I'd like to go to the public and then we can talk about timing.
Okay, so the case that we are currently discussing is 33902BZ, 14665 Springfield Boulevard, Queens. So if you wish to call in, it is 646-558-8656. The webinar ID number is 952-8018-3173. And the passcode, should you require it, is 156709. And when you call in, if you want to speak, press *9 to raise your hand and *6 to unmute to speak. If you are in the Zoom room already, please raise your Zoom hand.
So far, only applicants are in the Zoom room. All right, so we could do this like we did with a project of yours, Ms. Fullader, yesterday, where perhaps you could get the landscape drawings in time for the July hearing, because I don't see how you get it in time for unless you got it in by Friday. On that case, you could have gotten the answer in by Friday.
Yeah.
But in this case, you can't.
Yeah.
So what we could do is you submit only the landscape drawing in time for the July hearing, which I think is June 30th.
Yep.
Give you a little play on that. Oh, that's enough time. That's 2 weeks, right? And then you could proceed, assuming it's fine, with installing the landscaping. But the fencing, that's the other issue, is until we know the acoustical results, we won't know what the fencing is on the residential property lines.
And I was just thinking, like, maybe I'm off here, but with fencing, can't we put certain types of fencing, and then if we need, isn't a lot of the acoustical, you add it to your fence?
So when I think what Commissioner Shabeta was referring to as pretty nice wasn't the blankets that you tie onto existing fencing.
Okay.
Right? Those are the fencing that's pretty nice is actually usually is always opaque fencing, right? And we've even seen a version, not that you want in this case, where they have a clear material, right? So you don't want it in this case. So there's a lot of variety, but not putting up a fence and then blankets. That's done when you've got an existing fence and it's really too much to ask to rebuild the entire fence.
Yeah, definitely. I don't want to waste anyone's time, but.
Right.
Elise, what I would think we could do is with the landscape plans, we'll have a fully detailed out fence plan, including our selection for an acoustic fence. Assuming that the price isn't astronomically different than something else we'd propose, then we would just go at risk. Again, like we'll just build it, even if the noise findings don't warrant it. I may go back on that if the price is 10x, but assuming it's in the same ballpark, we would just do it because our desire is to be able to present a plan within 2 weeks that we could take action on and get going. Planting season is very, very, it's closing soon.
No, actually, it's the reverse. Planting season is going to be closed before you submit your drawings, because you really can't plant in July, August unless we have terrible weather. So the planting season ends up starting kind of end September.
But so, I guess my concern is yesterday I took a gander at your calendar, and there's only really like one hearing a month for the rest of the year. So it's
that's not true.
Well, in September there was one, maybe some of them there was two. A lot, just like October. There weren't a lot.
There are two in October, one in September, two in November, and one in December.
Okay. Yeah, I just don't want to miss. I know that our window is always like really tight.
Yeah. But for the cases where there's not a lot for us to look at, like we're not looking at, variance findings anymore, right? So we sort of covered that stuff. Now we're just into the sort of like nitty stuff, right? So those end up getting calendared more easily than the cases that require an enormous amount of board review. Okay. So, but to the point is, if we looked at your landscaping at the end of July, then there's time for you to contract the landscaper and all of that sort of stuff, right? So
yeah, definitely.
Okay. All right. So how much? So we're going to say 2 weeks to submit the landscape, right? Or not 2 weeks, by July 22nd hearing for the landscape.
And maybe, I don't know what's gonna happen, we can make a little headway in our other items like noise.
So are you holding them to
Yeah.
a June 30th submission, Madam Chair?
Yeah. That's 2 weeks, right? Isn't that enough?
I think so.
We could slide it, you know what, try for June 30th. And if you need to slide it a little bit, then request it and we can slide that a little bit. Okay. All right. Thank you, everyone. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, I'd like to give everyone a 10-minute break because we ran over the 12 o'clock. So 10 minutes, okay? Coming back at 12:40.
You ready?
No, it's not 12:40, 12:39. Oh,
Excuse
what?
me.
What?
1 minute. Oh my gosh. We have a quorum, so.
No, but we need it. We have it.
I know.
We have more than a quorum. No, we have every, Commissioner Sheta, are you there?
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay, good. Okay, we can go.
That voice is annoying. Okay, we're back on the record with the public hearing, June 15, 2021, 10 a.m. session. We'll now, the appeals calendar, item number 25, 2019-69A to 2019-78, 341, 343 Mallory Avenue, Staten Island.
Good afternoon, Todd Dale for the applicant.
No.
You
Hello,
don't have to be sworn in, so you can go ahead.
great. So we did listen to the review session and heard the comments of the board. I understand that certain commissioners are satisfied with the application, but we'll endeavor to answer some of the other questions that were raised. The first thing is to echo a comment of the chair, we agree with you that it would have been simpler or easier if we had had some designs to accompany some of the descriptions. The original reason we sought the adjournment was to allow time for the architect to prepare them. There were, some difficulties in the office. That said, we made the submission and proceeded, and hopefully we can provide any additional clarification to the comments that were made during testimony today. First, with respect, there has not been any demolition at the site. And to clarify, there are two structures that would be in what would be the subject site for this application. One is the existing home, which is an outdated and a bit dilapidated building that was originally constructed in the 1950s that is proposed to be demolished. But there's also a garage that is located on the lot closer to Mallory Avenue. And any demolition of the building or reconfiguration of the lot, if the existing building were to be retained, it's expected that they, I don't want to speak because I don't know the full zoning analysis, but there is a garage that provides a required parking for that building. So it actually, you couldn't demolish just the garage and leave the building because you would create a deficiency with the parking unless you did some, zoning lot configurations. We didn't really dig into it that much, but I just wanted to clarify that it's more than just the existing building that's there, that there's the garage that's at the front, which is closer to Mallory, which provides the existing parking there.
I have a question about that. So the garage looks like how does that work? It looks like it's shared with the two houses. Is that how it works?
Correct. So there's a building at 335, which is directly on Mallory, which is not, it's under separate ownership. It's not part of this lot. And then there's 335.5, which is the older building in the rear that's proposed to be demolished. The garage is parking for both of those structures.
So under your plan, what happens to the required parking for the 335 Mallory, if that's the correct address? The existing house.
I'm not sure. I can double check, and I don't know if they have existing parking underneath that building. I'm trying to double check here. Let's see.
No, there's a path that goes from the garage directly to a path that connects to those two houses. So it looks like.
I would say that's a extremely fair and reasonable question. I don't know at this time. I would need to provide that information in a subsequent submission to you.
Right. So, but I mean, so there's no requirement for an enclosed garage. You could just maintain those two properties and have cars pull up in a driveway like is done so much, right? So you could demolish the garage with no impact. And then you could renovate. I mean, 1950s, you make it sound like it's a house from the 1700s. 1950s is not that old for a house, right? And you could renovate it and you could have an addition to it, right? If the house is small, which it doesn't look very small, it looks like it's a multifamily actually, or maybe a two-family. So if the house is too small for the neighborhood, but it doesn't look like it's too small for the neighborhood, you could renovate it. We see that absolutely all the time, as do you on those 73-622s, right?
Understood. I don't know the full details, but I just wanted to clarify that it was more than just the building that was there. With respect to some of the comments were made, and I know that Nello came up as far as distinguishing, we did include this in our submission, but to clarify, there's several ways this is distinguishable from the circumstances in that case. The first thing I would just say is that this proposal seeks to provide a driveway and not a private road, which we believe is a significant difference. When the design scenario was developed for this site, the intent was to try and seek as minimal relief as possible. And the three buildings at the front, front directly on Mallory, which is a mapped street. It's the two buildings at the rear that are accessible by the driveway, which the fire department reviewed and approved. So it is a driveway and not a private road. It's fewer homes that would require relief and access, whereas the Nello design scenario would have required relief for 4 homes, I believe, total. Was it? Let me check the plan there. So yeah, there were 1, 2, 3, 4 homes that would require relief. This is only 2 buildings that require relief. The other thing too is that this lot shape is very different than Nello, whereas Nello had 140 feet frontage. This lot only has 105 feet frontage. So if you were to do a lot apportionment reconfiguration, there's a 35-foot minimum lot width requirement, I believe, in the R3X. So 140 versus 105 just means you could have 4 lots in Nello fronting on Sprague, whereas here there's only 3 lots maximum that could front on Mallory. And then also, we provided an analysis of the lot shape and the depth, whereas, Nello, the lots may have been more consistent with the rest of the block. These lots here, first of all, the flag-shaped lot is very unusual and unique within the block, but also the lot depth is very atypical within the block. And as we showed, the majority of lots have a much shallower depth that are not affected with practical difficulty as far as developing the full lot. The only lots that were of length comparable to this were the one existing home to the north, but then there's the city-owned property, but then there's the development to the south where there was an approval that's very similar to the Nello design, where you have that long private extension that allowed development, I believe, of 8 total homes that were fronting of the attached buildings that would be arranged perpendicular to Mallory. So I just mentioned those as far as distinction because we speak to the practical difficulty issue finding of General City Law 36, and we believe that the lot depth and the flag-shaped lot just in and of themselves show that there's practical difficulty in developing these sites in comparison to other sites. And then exacerbate that with the fact that you have the frontage and the fact that there are these 4 existing lots, as Vice Chair pointed out. There's some these narrow 20-foot lots. And really overall, the design was intended to provide a development that is most in character of the neighborhood, that would seek the minimum amount of relief, and is really only seeking relief for these 2 homes in the rear that are accessed by a private driveway rather than a full private road. So.
Oh, I guess I have a question about that also. Sure. In terms of the neighborhood sort of character of the buildings that could be developed on your proposal. In order to facilitate what you call the driveway, the houses on either side of the driveway are only 17 feet wide. Even though they're on what's described as a 35-foot lot, they're not actually, because the lot is reduced in usable width by this driveway. So it's again one of those situations where there's no side yard for the private property. It becomes a public sidewalk. So you're kind of back to those, you're effectively on a 20-foot wide lot anyway. And so you have these 2 under, let's say, substandard width houses of only 17 feet wide in an area where the houses are wider than that. And so the other 35-foot wide house lot has a much more typical 25-foot wide house with complying side yards. So, and so the houses at the rear are more typical of the neighborhood. But if you were not to put that driveway there and retain the house behind a house, which is an existing condition, and just renovate that 1950s house to the extent that it doesn't become new construction, and we see how much is allowed to be removed by DOB and not be treated as a new building, then you would get 3 35-foot wide lots and with 29-foot, 29-foot wide houses on them, which is much more typical of the area width. So you'd just be down by one house. This is the part I'm not getting in terms of the urban design argument.
Sorry to interrupt there. If you had 3 lots with 35 feet frontage on Mallory, because there's 105 feet total width, correct? If you had 35 and you retained that home at the rear then would need General City Law 36 approval to have access to it, because it wouldn't have any frontage directly there. I mean, if you're putting these buildings in front and changing the access to that home, you'd create a situation where you're creating a non-compliance for the existing home, which is currently grandfathered in. So that design scenario you're talking about, if you were going to retain that existing home, you really would only effectively be able to work with the southern 80 feet, which would result in 2 lots and 2 homes. I don't have the diagram in front of you, but that existing home, as soon as you start to place structures in front of it, we've dealt with situations before where we have existing homes and you build in front, they end up requiring General City Law 36 approval for homes in the rear.
Somebody needs to, I could try sharing the screen, but the existing house behind the house is directly behind the existing house. Let me see if I can just do this quickly. What is it, 333?
Madam Chair, I think that house is behind another zoning lot, right? It's behind another zoning lot. It's not part of the zoning lot.
Correct.
This is one of the things I'm having some difficulty with, because, Counselor, you're well aware of the law, and I've cited these cases before, so I won't cite them again, but these lots are owned by the same owner, and there's substantial case law that states and stands for the proposition that if the houses are owned by the same owner, we can then look to whether the entirety of it has frontage, and this certainly has frontage, and that was the issue that we had in Nello. And I don't believe that the difference between a private driveway and a map road is in any way a determinative distinction between this and Nello.
2 things to that. First of all, I believe that there is a significant distinction between a private drive and a private road, because when we've had other cases, there's been concerns raised by the board about confusion as far as maintenance of these fire apparatus access roads. And when you have a private road and it's a different street name, and then someone buying it may not be under the knowledge that they would be responsible for the maintenance of this. With this fact that this is a private driveway, that it's narrower, the fact that these have Mallory Avenue addresses, there would be absolutely no confusion on the part of any purchaser of these rear homes that this driveway is their responsibility. So it does take away one of the issues. I'm not saying all the issues, but one of the issues that has been raised by the board in the past.
Well, Nello, just on that, Nello, the reasoning of the board on Nello was the frontage and the lack of hardship. I don't believe the private road and driveway relate to that.
Right. The private road is really just a term of art in the zoning resolution that frankly this board doesn't spend any time considering. It's the paved thing that gets you to your house that we look at. It's not whether it's technically a private road or technically a driveway. It doesn't really make a difference. Wait, no, please don't interrupt. And then, so now you see on the shared screen that house behind the house is directly behind the house. So the house at the front, that fronts on Mallory. I don't understand. What's the difference between leaving it there with the same little access route and not leaving it there?
Well, when you describe the scenario of building up front, 174, which is a flag-shaped lot in its current construction, has the frontage on Mallory, which means then that 173, 172, and 170 could be reconfigured to create, different lots that would be meet the 35-foot minimum or various zoning lot configurations, you would need to retain that 174-foot portion. So then you're reducing the frontage on Mallory down to, I believe it comes down to 80 feet, because that's 25 feet, the 174 frontage, if I'm correct.
But you don't need to maintain, I mean, let's say there's a flag and there's some amount of frontage that's required. I guess it's the 8% rule or something, why can't you just reduce the size, the width of the frontage of 174 to whatever that is? It probably only needs 10 feet and then you're done.
It's possible, however, in Staten Island, which is different than Queens, and they have different interpretations. Those buildings were constructed in the 50s. Prior to any need for a general city law 36 approval or likely review, the standards were different at the time. And if you start to change the lots in the construction, the Department of Buildings, in our experience, when you have a building in the rear and you start to propose construction in the front, will raise general city law 36 objections for those existing homes. They're saying right now it's grandfathered, but now if you're building something in the front, you're changing the status of the building in the rear.
Well, what if you're sorry, go ahead. Sorry.
No, go ahead. I'm sorry.
But if you haven't tried this out, so we don't know. If 174, 173, 172, and 170, that's also yours, right? We're all on the same zoning lot, then they all share a frontage, right, on the zoning lot. So you no longer would have that issue as long as there's a little bit of squeeze space, because fire department, as it says, it doesn't drive its trucks onto private property. It just needs length for hose, right? So we often have that issue. So then that zoning lot has all that frontage, and that house behind a house, which is not changing other than an interior renovation, has frontage. So I again don't get it.
The issue here is that if those two buildings that exist right there, 335 Mallory and 335 and a half Mallory,
Yes.
were proposed to be constructed as they are right now. Let's say this was a vacant lot and we propose those two buildings. And we propose those lots like that. Staten Island Department of Buildings would issue an objection for the rear building saying it doesn't have frontage. Even if the lot has frontage, it would say that 8% does not have direct access frontage to the street, and they would raise an objection for that building. That building could not be constructed in its current location under the current application of General City Law 36 in the Department of Building and Staten Island's review. It would not be allowed.
If
It would say it
new,
would not have frontage.
if built new from scratch on a vacant lot, I don't disagree. It's an existing house on an existing lot, and all you're doing is, which you've kind of effectively already done, combined 173 to 170 as a single zoning lot. So I don't get it. What's the problem?
So you agree that it could not be built now. The issue that comes up is that if any construction now is proposed that would take any portion of 174 or interfere with that, we are essentially disrupting the grandfathered status of that building and would require General City Law 36. So any scenario where we retain that building, even if it satisfied other concerns that have been raised by the board, we're still going to run into a situation where the board's going to need to approve a General City Law 36 approval for that existing building. So you can have us create a different scenario and then force us to come back with an application to retain that building, or this current design, which is very well thought out, has the approval of DEP, the fire department, is very consistent with surrounding developments. I know you talked about the fact that those homes in the front are a little narrower, but if you scroll right down south of that block, you'll see that there are like 15-foot homes that are on that extension of Mallory down to the south. And there are also narrow homes right there on Lava Street. If you look to the left of Lava, there's two semi-detached homes right there that are of comparable width that are 15. So it's not unusual to have homes of that particular width. And this design is really the best design of this lot, considering the unusual length of the lot, the flag shape of the lot, the fact that it requires the minimum amount of relief, no variances, and only General City Law 36 approval for these two homes that are on a private driveway that have Mallory Avenue addresses. And going back to it, I just have to say, I respectfully disagree. I think there is a big difference between a private driveway and a private road, notably with respect to the issue that's been raised before this board on multiple cases about knowledge of maintenance and who is responsible for it. And I think with the driveway situation, it makes it abundantly clear that there's no question about who's responsible for the maintenance, which I think is an important factor.
Well,
I don't know.
it's a different, you're saying the difference between a GCL 35 and a private and a driveway?
No. When we've had, the board is aware, we've had many cases of General Law 36 before you. And an issue that's been raised before is that there's been reluctance to approve some of these because you run into a private road situation, and it has been stated at hearings that you run into an issue with maintenance because no one knows who's responsible, and private owners then are surprised to find out that the city is not maintaining Nello Court. Okay?
Thank you.
In this instance, there's no question
say,
about who's going to maintain this driveway because it is a driveway and it is not a private road. And I think that's an important factor of distinction. It may not
sure. So
I think it's important to know for the record.
Sure, and I was present during those hearings. I also was part of the decision in those hearings. And while I can't speak for the entire board, my reasoning behind denying Nello was based on there wasn't a clarified hardship, and that the entirety of the proposal had frontage. And I don't think there's any difference between this particular case and that. And at no point do I believe it was the reasoning in Nello. I'm not even sure if it was necessarily discussed in Nello, the difference, the issue that they had a private road or not, or driveway. I don't think that was part of the discussion at all. I think from the very onset of that, it was whether or not there was a hardship and whether or not they had frontage.
I agree with you. The driveway would not have been discussed under Nello.
Okay, Mr. Dale, I don't want to keep going around in a circle about private road versus driveway. I don't agree the DOB would require you to do anything if you had a merged zoning lot with those 4 lots. So you would need to demonstrate to me that if you left that house as is in that location and merged the zoning lots so that there is 105 feet of frontage of the zoning lot, that DOB would make you come for a new GCL 36 waiver for a house that's existed there since the 1950s. I do not see that would occur. So, yeah.
Is it possible that they go to DOB and get their opinion on that?
Yes, you could get a ZRD1 on that. And so what I would like you to do, because otherwise I can't support this case anyway, show a plan that shows 3 25-foot wide houses on 3 35-foot wide lots, where the two houses to one side collect to allow for, you sort of push them apart. So the 10-foot wide, the 8-foot wide drive is collected together to create a 16-foot wide access route, which we see all over Queens, for example, where the car drives to the parking garage at the rear. That then gives a wide opening for access to the building at the rear. If any kind of equipment of limited nature has to go down there, show that and see whether that's an approvable as of right condition with the existing house back there. You understand what I mean?
So to clarify, you would like to see a scenario with 3 homes fronting on Mallory with retention of the existing 335.5 Mallory at the rear.
Yes, but to clarify, because I'm looking at the drawing that you have proposed, where lot 170, I guess, none of them are the same lots because you've combined everything into one you've reapportioned the lot sizes, right? Mm-hmm. But the building to the south is 25 feet wide with an 8-foot required side yard and a 2-foot required side yard. So on the 2 houses that are to the north, have their 2 8-foot side yards meet up so that it's effectively a 16-foot wide emergency access route to the rear of the property. That way, if there were any issues about access, you could get access from a 16 wide foot area and the entire zoning lot. So they're divided into tax lots, not separate zoning lots. And the entire zoning lot has frontage of 105 feet. Okay,
So essentially, the difference from the current proposed design is that it would be reduction of the location of the existing driveway.
no,
and
well-
a increase in the width of those two buildings that are smaller, the two buildings.
and the elimination of the building, of one of the buildings at the rear.
Actually, it would be the elimination of both the buildings.
Both
and
the building,
the existing
yes, and show the existing buildings, right, the existing building, but not the existing garage, I assume. Maybe that garage could, I don't actually know where the garage falls on this drawing, but yeah.
The existing garage would be right where the word private is on the driveway. If you look at the plan, that's where the existing.
The word private easement is, that's where the
Yes,
garage
right
is?
there, smack dab in the middle of where the driveway is. where the-
Okay, so that couldn't be there anymore. But
Exactly.
you could move, you could actually provide a proposed garage way at the back just where you are, but with more spaces.
So the question that comes up is that if the Department of Buildings examined that scenario and said that the general city law 36 approval would be required for that home at the rear.
Yeah, that's what I'm looking for.
If they said that, then would the board, I understand you can't commit now, but then would the board at least consider the fact that the current design is a more efficient design and a safer design and provides a better driveway, and that really it's the best approach going forward rather than retaining this old building?
I can't speak for the rest of the board. The rest of the board will decide what it decides. I'm just saying, you made a statement, and you've made statements in your submission that that you can't build as of right on this site, and I'm not seeing that, right? So you need to substantiate that, and the ZRD one, I'd like to see it before you submit it, because I don't want it to lead the buildings department to your conclusion. I want it to just be a clean, simple question. Is this an approvable design as of right? That's all.
That's fine. We probably would not submit it as a ZRD one. We'd just ask for a commissioner opinion, because we don't have to pay the $1,000 fee, but we can get a Department of Buildings.
Okay, so I don't know how that works of just getting
I mean,
a review.
that said, though, we still believe that, I understand what's raised and we're agreeable to doing that. However, we believe that the information presented, especially with respect to the fact that these are atypically long lots and they create practical difficulty in developing it, that we've met the findings regardless, but we're happy to do that to supplement.
Okay, so, right, okay, thank you. Vice Chair Shanda, you have your hand up, go ahead.
Mr. Dale, remind me, this is in the lower density growth management area, right?
Correct, all staff.
And right, and so even a tax lot would have to maintain a 35-foot, even if you have a zoning lot and the zoning lot is subdivided into tax lot, each tax lot would have to have a 35-foot frontage?
Well,
I mean, the tax lots aren't controlled by the zoning resolution, so it would be the 35-foot minimum width in the R36. Off the top of my head, I don't want to design off the top of my head, I don't know if we can create a situation where the tax lots would be narrower other than some sort of condominium situation. So I don't know.
Okay.
It's 35-foot width is the R3X though.
Right. That's what
Right. And you'd have a maximum, as evidence here, that's the 3 35-foot widths that are currently proposed right now.
well, because according to, if that were the case, that you can't have a zoning lot unless it's 35 feet, you can't have a developable site unless it's 35 feet wide. Our GCL 36 doesn't affect the zoning at all, right? It's completely unrelated to the zoning requirement for a 3,500 square foot lot. So that's a completely different subject. I think what it is though is that you take the property and you divide it up into 3,500 square foot bits with a minimum width of 35 feet wide, and that's all. They don't say frontage in the zoning resolution. It just says 3,500 minimum width 35. And so that you get out of the site. So I don't think they're ever specific to frontage. That's another department.
Sure. And, I also want to mention the fact that just two things, just a quick mention is that another way to distinguish from Nello is that, Nello started with 3 existing lots and you could build 4 homes on it as of right. In this instance, we have a situation where you have 5 lots starting, what is it? We have more lots and we're proposing fewer homes. It becomes a situation really where this site results in fewer homes than lots as in the as of right scenario, and then Ella's site would have allowed for more homes than lots in the as of right scenario. So, that's just another way to distinguish it. But we'll explore that scenario. We'll submit it. I don't know if Commissioner Daly is available. Inspector Daly is available for this. I'm curious if he has any thoughts on whether the fire department would raise any objections to building in front of this existing home and whether they'd require any retroactive fire safety or fire department.
So, Mr. Dale, I don't want you to lead the witness. Let's see a drawing first, okay? Let's see a drawing. And let's see whether DOB would approve it as of right. Please, and I don't want you to lead the witness, okay?
That's fine. I don't really consider him a witness, but that's okay.
Well, he is a witness. He gives testimony. That makes him a witness.
That's fine.
As are you, okay?
What we'll do is when we come up with this design, I can send it separately to Inspector Daly so he can make some preliminary review just independently once he sees the design.
No, please don't do that. Please do what I'm instructing you to do. I want to find out from DOB first what they think, and then we'll deal with the fire department. Okay, one step at a time. Please don't try to subvert the discussion, the board's review. Okay.
We're not subverting.
Okay. No. Please, Mr. Dale, just leave it alone and submit us a copy of your written request to DOB and a copy of the drawings before you submit it to DOB so that staff can review, and then you'll submit it to DOB, okay? Please. Okay, thank you. All right. Any other comments from commissioners before we go to the public? No? Okay. So let's go to the public.
So the case we are currently discussing is 2019-69A and 2019-70A. 341 and 343 Mallory Avenue, Staten Island. The call-in number is 646-558-8656. The webinar ID number is 952-8018-3173. The passcode should you require it is 156709. You're calling in, please press *9 to raise your hand and *6 to unmute to speak. If you are in the Zoom room, please raise your Zoom hand to speak. We are only discussing Mallory Avenue at this time.
All right. So how much time to, first of all, prepare these drawings that I'm talking about?
I think we can be flexible with the board's calendar. I would say, I would have to reach out to the architect, but I think it would take at least a couple of weeks, but I don't think it would take much more than 4 weeks to prepare those drawings. So
okay,
I'll give you a very general 3 to 6 weeks, and then the board can fit that in as they see fit.
Okay, so that part is just to submit to staff for review before it goes to DOB, okay? So then we'll add, is it enough? So once you submit something to DOB for that kind of a review, what's the typical review time?
Again, I'm not trying to be evasive here, but we've submitted something recently, got a response back in 2 weeks, and we submitted something that 3 months later was still waiting for a response. So I would say, let me guess, 4 weeks from that. So maybe 6 weeks total for an official board submission, 6 to 7 weeks total for a total BSA submission.
Okay.
I think that's the best estimate.
Okay, good. Great. All right, thank you. Let me see, were there any open, no other open issues, right?
Just to confirm, it's really just this scenario. We'll review it with board counsel, then we'll present it to DOB and we'll see what they are. And then at the next hearing, we can respond to any issues that are raised because of that.
Correct. All right. Okay, great. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. So
Sure.
I'm marking 6 to 8 weeks to submit, depending on how our calendar looks. Okay.
Understood. It all depends on the calendar.
Right. Okay. Thank you.
Okay, zoning calendar, continued hearing items. Item number 26, 2017-262BZ, 18 Stanwick Street, Brooklyn.
Good afternoon, Todd Dale for the applicant. I think I need to be sworn in for this.
Yes.
Is anyone else with you?
I believe Barbara Cohn will also be
I
here
see
with
Barbara.
regard to the financial analysis.
Okay. Do you affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth? Raise your hand. Do you affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth in your testimony before this board and to respond honestly to board member questions?
I do affirm.
Yes.
Okay, Mr. Dale, please proceed.
So good afternoon. We did listen to the review session earlier and heard and understood all the concerns that were raised by the board. I will start just briefly responding to some of the zoning and design type issues, and then Ms. Cohen can respond to the financial analysis questions, which I believe were a significant number of the questions that were raised. First, with respect to the unit design, we presented the design that was preferred by the owner, but we've heard all of, especially the vice chair's concerns about the design. We will go back to the owner and ask for a significant examination of the unit design, especially with respect to making sure that it's not a situation where the board is, should any variance be granted, the board's not approving something that would not be compliant. But the short of it is we've heard very clearly the comments that were made regarding unit design, and we have mentioned them, but we will mention them again to the property owner very clearly, and we'll also ask them to review the review session tape.
So I'm a little confused I appreciate that you have to represent your client and try, but the first part of it is there was basically all of the responses to the board's comments the last time were effectively ignored, or let's say altered in some way. And all the commissioners have indicated, with the exception of perhaps one, have indicated the desire to close the case because you had a chance to make your case twice. You had a chance to make the case the first time. Okay, you always start the first time and it doesn't quite work out. And then there was an opportunity to make the case in sort of potentially a one and done. And there was no potentially, I don't know, because I don't know if the findings could have been made, but nonetheless, the instructions were change the design, give us an example of a conforming use, et cetera, or a mixed commercial, and every one of those things was ignored. So what's the reason why we shouldn't just close this?
I think that's very fair. There's a number of things you packed in there, and I'll seek to respond to each one of them. The first I would say is that this particular case, I know that, and this is something that the board has had to deal with, not just on this matter, but other matters, that, because of the pandemic, there have been a lot of delays with cases. As we clarified at the first hearing, this particular case also was on hold a bit because the city was contemplating rezoning for the area. So though we acknowledge that this case was filed at some time, the fact is this is the second hearing. And later this afternoon, when we get to it, our office is also representing another applicant for a similar application, and that variance application is going for its third hearing. I realize there are different parts of the cycle, but we don't find it out of the ordinary or unreasonable that this would be given the same opportunity for 3 hearings. So I think there needs to be a distinction between date of filing and the year of filing, but also recognizing the circumstance of the case and recognizing that this is the second submission. Beyond that, with response to the issues that were raised, significant time and effort was put forth with respect to the financial analysis. I realize that there's questions about that, and Ms. Cohen and I can respond to that, but the fact is there's no denying a lot of work was done on that feasibility study. There was also a lot of work done on the land use study, which again, we'll talk to some of the vice chair's comments on that, but this is not a situation where this was an insubstantial submission. Now, with respect to just one quick issue that you raised there about the alternate design, as the board is aware, we are representing this other case, and for that other case that's seeking a variance for that application, we did present a second as of right scenario that was an office use, similar to what was discussed. Now, I've gone back and I've listened to the video of the prior hearing, and if there was miscommunication on our part, I apologize. But for Stanwyck, for the Harrison case, which I'll reference, it was very clear that an alternate as-of-right design needed to be reviewed, and that was presented in the materials. For this case, it was briefly mentioned during review session about possible alternate as-of-right. However, when we were at the hearing, there was discussion about the fact that because the lot in particular, Stanwyck, was so much less depth, it really wasn't a focus, and it was considered that the office use would be an issue because of the common elements that were required. So based on our notes and our review of the review session, there was no real specific discussion for this alternate as-of-right scenario. We're happy if that is what the board really wants now. We can explore that also, but I just want to create a distinction between the two cases and also note that, you know, if we did it for one case, I realize these are different property owners, but with our office here, if we heard it and did it for one, we're aware of the scenario and the questions being asked, and we didn't do it for this one, it wasn't a deliberate effort not to do it for Stanwyck's. It was the fact that we thought that it wasn't as significant an issue and it wasn't raised fully at the hearing portion. So that's a long-winded response, I suppose, to what you're raising there as far as you know, closing the case and why we don't believe it should be closed today.
I'm finding this. Yeah, go ahead, Commissioner.
I just want to say from my position, I specifically don't have questions on the financials. So I don't want to get into a debate with your financial analyst over their views as to why this was an appropriate financial versus my views. Excuse my dog, he's trying to get in.
Hello,
versus my view, which is that too much was changed in an effort to prove that the as-of-right doesn't work, and also that the proposed was the minimal variance. And there comes a point, there are some times when one can ask questions as to a point of view, but this is not that case. This is a case where I feel that there is not going to be any credibility going forward, and so I have no questions.
I understand what you're hearing, and you know, I appreciate those comments, but I would also point out that at the prior hearing, there was discussion about the fact that, you know, a lot of these materials were from 2017. So, Ms. Cohen, if I could finish, I don't interrupt you. I'd appreciate not being interrupted here. When we talk about these materials and changing it, and Ms. Cohen can speak to it more clearly, a lot of these changes were not done with the intent of a bait and switch and switching things around. It really was updating the materials fully and trying to present them to the board. So I just want to, I think that that's an important counterpoint to make here, you know, with respect to the effort that was put forth in this. It really was done, okay, it's 2021, let's present this information, not let's switch things around. And regardless, we believe that the study shows clearly that there is a lack of reasonable return from the scenario that was examined. So that's my response to that.
Commissioner Ollie Brown, did you want to respond?
Yes, I wanted to say that specifically, I zeroed in on a few items on the 2017 report. If you'll just excuse me, if I just open my door and let him in, he'll shut up.
But I also wanted to say that the request was to update information such as zoning, area photos, land use map, et cetera, which is very dated, which by the way, were not updated. So I'm quite confused by your statement that you were trying to bring everything up to date. I still have the photos from 2017. I still have a land use map from 2017. All of those things that actually could change, the zoning, et cetera, those were not updated, but the financials were brought to 2020 and or 2021. I don't get that. Sorry.
Right.
Wait. Commissioner,
what I wanted to say were the comments that I had were actually that for 2017, your construction costs were way too high. For 2017, for residential, 100% residential project, your cap rate was too high. And so for you to then say, okay, I'm going to use that statement that I felt it was too high and attribute it to a 2021 set of numbers, who was talking about 2021? There was no point in that conversation where I said, and by the way, your sales prices are old, your rent is old, bring it all up to 2021. All I wanted was that you take into account the fact that I felt for 2017, most especially, that your costs were too high and your cap rate was too high.
Understood.
And what a
I think there's-
coincidence that your updating literally absorbed the decrease in construction costs and literally absorbed all of the delta that I was expecting to see.
I think that there's two issues we're dealing with here, and I think it might serve us best to separate them. The first is with respect to, continuing the case and obtaining another hearing. We believe that we've shown effort and made a substantial submission to this, and the fact that having a third hearing it would be not unreasonable at all, considering that a companion or a similar case is having a third hearing later this afternoon. With respect to the specific questions that Commissioner Otley Brown, you raised in the financials, I think, if we want to get into that, it's probably better to have Ms. Cohen jump in and rather than me respond if we're going to get into the specifics of that now. So I think there's two things there.
Yeah, so I don't, so here you have this basic problem. Our B finding is managed by our financial expert, right? And if our financial expert is of the opinion that you're not going to be able to make the B finding because the moving target problem and the nature of how the financials have been handled to date are not persuasive. And if you have also our engineer has been looking at construction costs, finding that the construction costs remain too high because there have been no change to them. I'm a little confused about this, and then an unwillingness to respond to the board's direction about the design of the building, of just digging heels in. We've had other cases where heels were dug in and we directed a redesign and the heels were dug in and dug in and dug in. And that's when we just stopped the misery, right? So I'd actually like to hear from other board members, but I don't know what to do about the B finding. If Commissioner Otley Brown thinks there's not going to be one, then the case is done, right? So I'd like
our financial expert here and is available to discuss and to defend the report that's made. And I think it would be reasonable to have her heard.
Okay, so she can speak, but again, the board has spoken. What do we do about this? The board is the one that makes the decision ultimately. But
it's again the same exhausting game that's being played like all the time. I believe enough is enough.
In this case,
we did ask for so many things.
Go ahead, Mr. Commissioner.
We did ask.
Go ahead, Commissioner Shaitas.
We did ask for items to be provided. Nothing of what we asked for was provided. We asked for Marshall and Swift. Nothing, not even single word on that in the submission or in the response. So this is guys, this is a very well-known game since I joined this board. Like I said, you push it from here, we jack it up from there. It's very well-known game. It has to stop. And I believe whoever applicant behave like that, we should just close and vote.
Okay. All right. Okay. Ms. Cohen, would you like to speak?
Yes, very much so. So when I looked at the report, and I have to say, based on my experience here and legal counsel, we both thought that the 2017 and the amount of time that has passed and the changes in the neighborhood dictated an update. The site value, when I looked at the site value table, I also noticed there was an asking price, of which I know now that's unacceptable to Commissioner Brown to have asking prices in the site value. The other two were 2016 sales, and one was 2017. So immediately I said, of course it has to be updated. As far as the site, the areas change. In fact, I had even put in the report a before and an after of the parcel that was developed in the time, and talked about the impacts in the market as more residential was being built immediate to the site and the area overall. And how this particular parcel and its proposed development scheme compared to what is now available on the market and where its market position fell. And all of that discussion was a reflection of actual change. As far as the as of right scenario goes, it clearly says that the scenarios building type could be a commercial use or a semi-industrial use, and that the lease comparables reflected a range, and at $30 a square foot that was used in the pro forma certainly reflects more of a commercial use versus a warehouse use. The fact that there's in getting recent comps that there wasn't much change between then and now is really indicative of that there's not much of a market for a small warehouse building, and certainly there's no office market at all. As far as the sizes of the bedrooms in the proposed plan, the last submission, each unit was actually around 690 square feet. I did notice where in a sentence where I did say 1,375 square feet, and I used the word each, which was a mistake to say each, because it's not each, it was 2 per floor, and that 1,375 would have been divided by 2, and that this proposed plan is 744 square feet. So they're not overly small compared to what it may be on the slightly small side for a 2-bedroom, but not extremely small. The one unit on the ground floor is I will say smaller than what is typically expected. As far as cost concern, the cost estimator simply went back and used an industry standard, and in multiple submissions, most recently, the discussion of Marshall and Swift as being used by the industry of which it's not has been sort of explained, and that the better choice is the ENR, which was provided and indicated where the updates were made. But the fact of the matter is that the commercial as of right at 250 square feet did not concern me at all, because I can pull over, all the files over 20, 30 years where 250 square feet for the base construction cost for this type of thing is been there all along and shouldn't surprise anyone. Now, and again, I want to say it's the base construction cost. I know in some of these other hearings about costs, all of a sudden it's added to soft costs, and then, there's all this hoopla, the costs are 600 and whatever. That's inappropriate. The soft cost schedules, you have to remember, have elements in them that change with each project. There are marketing costs. In this case, the as of right and the proposed represent 24 to 30% of hard costs. Again, not unusual, not not, it's all within acceptability. And the proposed, truthfully, at 246, I guess, square feet per square foot, I would have expected it to be more, but I took it as it is. I can turn it, of course, I can totally reverse course, totally ignore changes in the neighborhood. We can keep all the other materials frozen in time from 2017. I can certainly go back and
Can I get in here a
adjust
second?
the cap rate
I
lower.
applaud your dedication to ensuring that the numbers are updated, like you say. However, if it was really that important for you to have the most recent information about the neighborhood, why didn't we have a more recent report for the first hearing? Why did we go with 2017? If so many changes have been made to this neighborhood and so much has changed to the economics of this, don't you think it's kind of slipshod then to have not given us a 2021 report for the very first hearing?
I don't put the things together, but I will say that obviously you can't have a mismatch and there should be consistency one way or the other. And so, like I said, I'm happy to go backwards and, zero in on the few points that you made and support my position with evidence galore. Happy to do it. Or the other stuff gets updated to be in alignment with reality and also and mine. So and I certainly believe that we should have the opportunity to do whichever direction you want to go, and that will also give obviously the owner an opportunity to seriously consider the design and the comments regarding the design of the configurations and the height. And the other thing is that and getting a real determination as to the cellar. Is it a cellar? Is it a basement? I went with what I was told, which was a cellar. I even spoke to the fact that if there were the way you move through the cellar to get to the rear, and the potential for tenant storage and so and so and so. I mean, there's a lot there that speaks to that. But if it's not a cellar and it's now a basement, well, new design, new considerations. So so yeah, look, I was happy you gave me the compliment on the prior case and not so happy you went after me on this one. But I think in the end, I think that there should be opportunity for a next hearing and obviously, and yes, I think it is one more chance, get it all in one direction or another, go back or go forward, make it consistent, and have the owner make his final decision about things, and we'll go with that, and it will be what it will be.
So my comment about this has been a very badly managed case, very slipshod. You have certain consultants who are doing their work and others not doing any work. And so what we've got is one doing what needs to be done and others not doing anything at all, and the board having to fill in blanks and so on. And so, and this is not how to manage a case. So when Ms. Cohen decides that she needs to represent how the neighborhood has changed, but we have no information anywhere else about how the neighborhood has changed with submitted updated documents, then it all comes as quite a surprise. Oh, the neighborhood has changed. The only way I know it's changed is either from a site visit or current satellite imagery, which is not actually submitted into the record. So, what I would like to do now is go to the public and then we'll talk. Let's go to the public because we have 20 minutes left before the 2 p.m.
Yeah. The case we're currently discussing is 2017-262 BC, 18 Stanwyck Street, Brooklyn. If you wish to call in and speak about this case, it is 646-558-8656. The Zoom webinar ID number is 952-8018-3173. The passcode should you require it is 156709. And when you call in, you can press *9 to raise your hand and *6 to unmute. If you're in the Zoom room already, please raise your Zoom hand.
Okay.
We're only discussing 2017-262 BZ.
Great, that's Stanwyck Street. So while we wait to see if anyone calls in, what we normally do when we have a vote to close, the reason for a vote to close is not every commissioner necessarily will agree to close. They want to keep the record open and give the opportunity for the case to be heard. So I would like in a minute, don't do it yet, please, bring this to a close vote because I know we have at least a couple of commissioners who would like to close. I don't know this position of the others, and I'm going to leave my vote till the end so I don't influence anything. The other thing is I just want to say that you cannot rely on what was done on another case for this case, right? Can't say, I did a good job on that case. You should let me do a good job on this case. Each case is a standalone. We review each case on a case-by-case basis. So no, we do not look at the other case, well prosecuted or not, it doesn't matter, right? This case. So having said that, and no one called in to speak, I would like to bring a motion to close, and please come to me last, okay?
Okay. Vice Chair Chanda?
You're muted. You're muted.
No, I'm not.
No, not you.
Oh, I'm sorry, Vice Chair Chanda. I can't hear you.
You're mute. Everyone's muted.
I'm sorry. Yeah, sorry. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
That was odd. Can I say something?
Yes, of course.
I think in all fairness, this is the second hearing, so I would like to give them a chance, though I also don't have much faith in the deliverables of material that has been submitted now. So just for that reason, in all fairness and consistency with other applications, I would say no, not close it. But again, I am very disappointed with the submission that has been made.
Okay, thank you. All right.
So your vote is not to close it.
Yeah, just giving them one chance, but if not, then I would want to close it if this material is same as now.
Okay.
Commissioner Otley Brown?
Sorry, we can't hear you.
I heard her. She said yes.
You said aye?
She said aye.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Sheta?
Yeah, I'm gonna say something as well. I believe voting yes on this is gonna put them under pressure to take this seriously. And we're not joking here. If the material submitted next hearing is not up to our expectations, I would be sympathetic to just vote on this and deny it next hearing. So therefore I'll vote yes.
Yes to close, but to receive materials.
Yes to close, but give him a chance to submit.
Okay, and then if their materials are persuasive, we
We
reopen.
can reopen, yes.
That's another approach. Okay, thank you. And Commissioner Shabeta?
So I do like Commissioner Shed's approach. My decision is more based on preserving the record. And as Commissioner Chanda stated, this is only the second time they're on. And while I'm very disappointed with the material that has been presented, I do think that on potential appeal, they have made an argument to correct. And I think it's important that they be heard on that. So I vote no on closing.
Okay. All right, I appreciate that. And I appreciate all the different positions. So I would vote no on a closure for the same reason of keeping the record open. And anyway, we seem to have kind of a on the fence version of keeping the record open by closing. And however, what I want to say is, and I'm going to note it in my notes, last chance. If we don't see a perfect submission responsive to every single comment that was made at this hearing and all of the last hearings and all of the last review sessions, then I'm definitely done with the case. And you cannot rely on what you did on another case to say, oh, well, we anticipated that on the other case you didn't want this. So yes, there should be a study of a commercial use, a ground floor commercial use, and yeah, Commissioner Otley Brown's upset about this, I can see, because of course she's the one stuck reviewing the.
Right, and to be honest with you, I think the simplest building is the building typology we should pursue here, because it's, first of all, their argument is that there is no office market here. So why would we have them put higher construction costs into building some kind of a commercial quasi office / retail when they're telling us it's not going to work? And they have a small site. Just give us a 1-story warehouse / storage, 100% lot coverage building, the simplest construction, no staircases to a cellar, no elevator. I want this simple, a pull down door so you can get your goods in and out, and that's it. And then let's talk about it, what the rent and everything would be. And I want to go back to 2017 simply because it was so important for them to stick with 2017 at the very beginning of this hearing.
Okay.
I do want to remind the applicant that if the materials aren't up to what the board would consider as an appropriate response, we do have the option of closing upon review. And this is the second time that you had the opportunity to be heard. If the materials do not indicate that there's going to be something of value to discuss, closing upon review may be at our board review may be the option that the board decides to take.
Sorry, I don't know what you mean closing upon review. In other words, we don't hold a hearing? I don't think we have that option.
I think we can review the case and close and vote to close.
Like we suggested to do today. No,
Right.
it's not an option. If in the next hearing, the board doesn't have what it thinks it needs, we close, we're done. No argument about it, we close, we done, right? We're not gonna ask for a little more to clean it up or anything. Last chance, right? So no matter what happens, at the next hearing, we're closing, and at the following one, we vote based on the record, okay? No more tweaking. If the design of the building is ridiculous still, done. If Commissioner Otley Brown is not satisfied with what ends up happening with the financials, or Commissioner Sheto with the cost estimates, done, okay? Not an option,
I
right?
just want to add, and we're going to be specific. We're asking for Marshall and Swift, and we want the backup cut sheets for every page you use.
Okay.
Okay.
So it's Marshall and Swift in 2017.
2017.
2017, okay, all right. So last chance. I'm just making, okay.
So to clarify, because I appreciate everything the board has said. I thank you for it. It will be helpful as we will be able to impress upon the owner the need for all the materials that are required. With respect to, we heard the comment, Marshall and Swift, 2017 cut sheets. I just want to clarify, because I don't want any discrepancy perhaps between what Commissioner Sheta has said and Commissioner Otley Brown. Are we going to present just the one as of right scenario, which is currently on record, which is a pull-down door, one-story warehouse, and not explore office. I don't want to not give you something that one of you wanted and the other one doesn't, if that makes sense. I just want full clarity.
Commissioner Otley Brown, just to clarify with your words as opposed to shaking your head, nodding your, you're muted. Sorry, we can't hear you. You're muted.
Simple, one story, pull down door, no office. I want to see it as storage.
So noted, that will be our as of right scenario.
And can I simply ask, just to again clarify, if we're doing that, I'm matching warehouse rents, correct?
Yes,
Office.
that's fine. You can match your warehouse rents.
Very good.
Match warehouse rents, but so again, the materials that have to do with zoning, neighborhood, all of that have to be updated. The financials stay in 2017. That's what.
And common ownership.
Yes. Oh, and a common ownership search. No.
Yep.
Yes. The single separate searches have been incredibly delayed, unfortunately, and we apologize it wasn't in, but we were told that we would actually have it by the end of this week.
Right.
So we'll submit that.
Okay. No excuses of anything. No additional time of anything. Okay.
We have a full list of everything that is needed with respect to the updated materials, the design and plan issues, and most importantly, the feasibility study items. We have a full and clear list.
And for me, I have a big issue with neighborhood character. You have a street on which you're building one sore thumb. That is this little building adjacent to nothing on a commercial street where there are no residents on this social block.
We will provide updated photographs showing the development of the area. We'll also make it clear that this particular street front actually has a residential variance previously granted by the board, and we'll make it very clear in the information that we provide that this is within the neighborhood.
Excuse me. Your narrative needs to be supported by visuals. You can't just say, because that's what you have in your narrative.
Nope.
This street, that address, all this stuff. I have no idea where those things are without you giving me supporting materials to show that they really are.
You will have 2021 photographs.
Okay. And where needed, because we can't tell what's inside of a commercial building if you're saying it's occupied by residents, you need certificates of occupancy. So I'm not kidding. There can be nothing left for us to research, like what Vice Chair Shanda had to do to walk us through the lots. No more relying on the mom and dad version of the Board of Standards and Appeals. You have to do your own work. Okay?
No, understood. Now, just quickly, with respect, we did provide the vacant lot study base because that's what historically has been requested for these. And I appreciate the work that the vice chair did. We can supplement that study. I just want to make sure that we can provide it to the record. We'll do an examination of similarly sized lots in the area that are currently developed and assess the uses that are on those developed lots. So we can supplement the study. Vice Chair, is that what you'd like to see the vacant lot study updated with, is the developed lots also?
I had said this at the first hearing, and I think this is something I'm consistently iterating, is that when you are analyzing a non-residential building a site in a zoning district where residential use is not permitted, for me, it is very important, and I think to make the argument that what is a distinction between the lot sizes where a residential in this neighborhood, what's the market driving the residential use lot sizes? And that's why I looked at all the manufacturing lots. I did not look at the residential lots because to me, that's irrelevant.
Yes.
You can build as of right even on a narrow lot or do whatever it is. Whereas here, the issue is you have manufacturing lots. So look at manufacturing zoning districts and see which one of these lots are buildable for manufacturing or can be used for viable for manufacturing, and which lots cannot be, and what are they, and what are those similar sized lots being used for in manufacturing districts.
Okay, so
that's really how I looked at the charts, and that's how I presented the analysis at the hearing. So if you want to make the argument that in this area, this lot size, similarly sized lots are not being used for anything, other than residential, then you need to provide more documentation. And that has to be not just the Ms or the C, it also should include the C8 sites in the neighborhood, because you're using the comps also from the neighborhood. So I think there should be similarities in that way. It should not be just limited to 400-foot area personally.
Yeah, I agree, because going to an R district that happens to be within your radius is of zero use, right?
Yeah.
The other thing that I wanted from the neighborhood character perspective is you have, I forget how many lots to each side that are vacant. And I'm very concerned about what this does to this block. Now you cannot any longer assemble those lots because you've got this building in the middle. What happens to those other lots? I made this comment at the last hearing that they turn all into variant sites, which I don't want this building to be the thing that turns all the lots on either side into variances. I don't know how to overcome that. That's neighborhood character for me is what's killing this project, independent of the terrible design, which also is killing the project. So that's been my focus. So each one of us has a different take on whether this project is viable, and I can't get past neighborhood character. So I'd have to say you have a lot of work to do on neighborhood character as far as I'm concerned.
Understood. We did submit, I won't get into detail now, but we'll supplement.
I read what you submitted, and it was not substantiated with any visuals. So I can't accept that because it's just words on a page, and we're talking about an actual urban character here, and you need to address it with supporting documentation, not just your write-up, okay?
No,
all right.
We'll do it in submission.
Okay, so we're gonna need to jump off pretty soon for the 2 p.m. hearing. I'm gonna ask Mr. Goldstein to dial into the 2 p.m. So, okay, how much time to submit all this? It's gotta be excellent.
As this, we can be flexible with the board's calendar. If you're agreeable to at least 8 weeks to submit, because I want to make sure we have enough time, but we could do a little longer because I know there's odd calendar dates this year.
Okay, and what I would like to say to support Commissioner Otley Brown, whose pain I feel, the submission on the financials needs to be very, very clear and simple, so she doesn't have to wade through all kinds of stuff to find the answer. So maybe a summary, cover page summary that's maybe, let's say, clear about all the things that were done that are different in addition, and then pointing to where the changes are to the 2017 material, so that she doesn't have to review everything looking for where's Waldo kind of thing. So maybe I don't know if this is appropriate. Feel free, Commissioner, to jump in and.
I'll jump in. I'm always happy to do the cover letter, and a lot of the specifics I actually put on the first page, and all reports are actually formatted very, very, very similar. So the waiting and the jumping, I don't think really occurs, but anyway, I will.
I don't generally have problems like that with Ms. Cohen's work, with having to jump around. It's laid out clearly.
Okay, good. All right.
I just may not agree with it.
Yeah, well, that's your job.
That's the whole other story.
Okay. All right. Okay. Thank you very much. So I'm noting 8 weeks to submit with flexibility, right?
Yes.
All right. Thank you.
Okay, so we're going to
So we're going to move to the 2 p.m. hearing. Mr. Goldstein already left, and I told him to dial in.
Give us a minute to log on to.
So we'll go to the 2 p.m. and then we'll take a 30-minute break and come back for the afternoon session, or for Mr. Goldstein's case. And then we'll begin the afternoon session. Okay.
Okay.
Sorry, everyone. All right. Thank you.